Hello sleepyheads, welcome back to my channel. Today we are finishing up the series on why I'm not having a great summer. And if you can't tell from that, this is kind of a vent series, like I'm unloading a lot in these videos. Not necessarily trying to complain, but that's kind of the nature of this story I'm telling, is some unlucky things happening all in a row. And so yeah, if you don't think that's relaxing, I totally understand. If the thought of I don't know, car trouble and just listening to someone kvetch, you know, just listening to someone recapitulate a long, frustrating story. Yeah, if the thought of that stresses you out, I totally understand. I just thought it might be nice just because of the volume of information. If you like soft speaking and you don't normally get to hear me talk at such length on a topic. So we're going to jump right in because I have a theory I'm developing that the crows in my neighborhood are messengers sent by a kindly witch from the future who knows that I'm developing vocal cord notes on my vocal cords, and she's sent them to come and warn me. Don't want that. So I have with me today a cup of tea with 3 bags. I'm just kidding. Just patternizing, because in the preceding 2 videos I went from like 1 bag of tea to 2 bags of tea. But yeah, today I'm just going to be drinking a lot of water. And yeah, let's just get right to it. And I feel like I didn't cover that much in the last video. I did not get through as much as I would have liked. And I think I was just so exhausted and struggling mentally and physically. In general lately, I apologize. I'm noticing as I'm editing videos, I can really feel and really see and really hear my fatigue. And I just want to say again, in case I haven't named it yet, that it's not a reflection on like my excitement to make content or lack thereof. It's not about the ASMR or my channel or any of you. I'm bringing that energy to all areas of my life right now. Across the board, I'm just really tired. And rest is of course important, but I need and want to balance that imperative with my goals, you know, a few goals that are really important to me, and also, you know, financial necessity, of course. We all have to balance that with rest, and it can be really challenging, especially during these especially during this inflationary crisis. So yeah, we're all on the same page, right? Because it's not just the United States. I know Japan has been hit really hard by inflation, Germany, so there's a good chance that you watching this have also been affected. Yikes, right? Yikes. So yeah, and if you don't like thinking about fiscal just anxiety, you're not gonna like this video. Just naming that. yes, I apologize if you feel like I'm not bringing as much joy to my videos lately. I do feel it a good amount of the time. Yeah, I have less to give across the board in my life, like I said. And I was just really noticing that when I was editing in my voice, and how quickly I was getting irritated and distracted by background noise. I could see it right where like my cheeks and my under eyes connect. I feel like that's one of the first places I show fatigue. So yeah, it's like significant fatigue, I mean, because like I think I can look tired a lot of the time, but like when I'm really worn down, I can see it there. I get like a shadow right there. Because I have big orbital sockets, so that's actually like my under eye bags can be like down here. It's okay. The best way to fix that is to try to get rest when I can. Okay. Hello, sleepyheads. Welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Remy and I make ASMR videos. For today's video, I'm going to be finishing up the series on my, I don't know why I'm so disgruntled lately. So, okay, so jumping right back in. So, my partner made it to his callback, made it back to our apartment, was able to pick up my car. My car we call May, M-A-E, and we call his car Bubs. We just have very different naming styles. Like, I named one of my plants years ago. I named an orchid Lola, and then I like let him name a plant, and he was like Johnny Snake Hole, and I was like, Jesus fucking Christ. Not really in keeping with my aesthetic, but I like that we're different. I value that. So we've got May and we've got Bubs. And like, of course, the name has devolved or like progressed, I guess, evolved to be like weirder and weirder. So like now I call it the Booty Bubs. I don't know what it even means. I just got to a point where I started feeling affection for my partner's car, because it was like an extension of my affection for my partner. So like I would see his car on the street and be like, oh, there's anyway, so point is that we were bummed out that Bubs was ailing, possibly dying, or possibly like completely dead. Yet to be seen, it remained to be seen. And we circled back together. Like, he picked me up in San Diego in May, and then we went to where his car had broken down and then been towed off the highway. If you'll recall, our plan was to have Bubs towed using AAA. I have a AAA membership, and you get like, on the classic membership, you get 4 tows a year within 7 miles. And you know, if I'd had a better membership, if I had the Plus membership or the Premium Plus, I would have had access to 1 tow up to 100 miles and 1 tow up to 200, respectively. Like, I think Premium gets you both, but you only get the former with the Plus plan. So I didn't have that. You never think you're gonna have a car break down exactly like 100 miles away. So like close enough that those offerings would be worth something, but far enough that, again, those would be worth something, worth paying extra for that insurance, for that coverage. So, yeah. We were also like hoping that, sorry for the siren, I'm going to keep going if that's okay. We were also hoping that maybe AAA could fix the car, like it was something silly and easily fixed by roadside assistance. You know, like they can jump your car, they can do a few things that can get you up and running. But we kind of knew it wasn't going to be something like that. We'd done, you know, some preliminary research, and the most likely thing, it seemed, was this back battery, like I said in the last video. So, yeah, we were just going to have them come and then ask them to tow the car to that Toyota shop. My partner really didn't like that idea. He wasn't in love with the idea because, you know, going to the dealership, going, you know, to Toyota itself for a repair can be very expensive. The idea is that they're not cutting any corners and they're restoring it to, like, not factory settings, but, you know, like, you're getting Toyota to fix your Toyota, right? But you're certainly not going to get any deals, is the idea. So he wasn't super happy about that, and I was like, well, let's just put it there so it can be there overnight. Like they said, you know, can leave it on the lot overnight. And then we at least get the diagnostic codes. There will be a fee for that, but we'll know what we're dealing with. And then we don't have to go through Toyota for the repair. Like, they're not going to make you, they can't make you. They can't, like, impound your car and be like, because it's a Toyota, technically it's still ours, you know, it takes these backsies or whatever. They weren't going to do that. So that was the plan on which we'd settled when we got back to Bubs, and it was like 9 p.m. and we called AAA and awaited a contractor, you know, a technician to, I guess, like, pick up the ticket or get dispatched. You know, that's how it works. Like, AAA will arrange with a local contractor. So in this case, a local towing company, most likely. So let me make sure this saves. I'm like a little shocked by how quiet it is right now at 4 p.m. on a Monday. I would have thought after work traffic would be like raging on my street, you know? So knock on wood. But it's nice while it's lasting. Gulp. Big gulp. Sorry, that's like a thing, right? 7-Eleven big gulp. So, also, does my face look like too shiny today? I tried a new product that, like, SAIE illuminator. So if I'm a little too glowy, that's why. Trying something new. I also tried a new like setting powder. Anyway, stay focused, stay on track. So we actually weren't waiting terribly long when a tow came, and I wonder also if it was in part because we were on this big, I mean, it's a bit of a fool's errand to try to figure out, like, why sometimes you only wait like 10 minutes for AAA and sometimes you wait hours and hours and hours. Like they say, it's about demand, but I'll get to this later, but I don't think that's always the case. I think it's also at the whim or the discretion of the various contractors being contacted, being offered the ticket, the commission or whatever. But I also wonder, because we were on this big drag, like this major thoroughfare, it was kind of like dead because it was a commercial part of Carlsbad, you know, a very car dealership heavy area, and wide and, you know, like very straight, lots of curb again, because I'm sure there's lots of business there during the day, but during the night, because you can't park overnight, it was dead. So we were like one of just a few cars sprinkled along like this long drag. So I wonder if it was also that like it was just really accessible and really close. I think they'd said as well, really close to the towing company. So a technician came. Let's call him Hector. Hector came and was nice enough and just tried a few things and couldn't get the car started. I think tried to jump the front battery and the back battery, you know, opened the trunk and went underneath and accessed that hybrid battery. I didn't even know like you could jump those with jumper cables in the same way. I knew nothing, like we knew nothing about this stuff. I mean, my partner knew a little more than I did just by virtue of, by way of having been a hybrid owner for a year, just a year, before all hell broke loose. But, yeah, so we were just really deferring to the car professional, and he was a man of few words, so we had to like really prompt him for information. We would be like, so is it the hybrid battery? And he'd be like, yeah, most likely. So like that was kind of the energy, like long pauses, very little information. If we pushed him, like he'd say more, but I think he felt bad for us, or like was trying to figure it out, was maybe a little confused. Maybe he didn't know, because maybe not everyone is super well versed in Priuses, but there's a lot of like fiddling and thinking. So we were just letting him do his thing, and then he broke it to us. He was like, yeah, I think this is most likely, like almost definitely, the hybrid battery, and he couldn't get the car started. And that's when he explained to us that he was not able to get the car into neutral because it's different than a non-hybrid, you know, like the way it works. It needs its power to go into neutral, and this is a particularly painful element of the situation, as you'll come to understand. But the big issue was how to get this car into neutral. And at that point he told us that he probably couldn't tow the car because he had a flatbed, and I guess he didn't have the necessary equipment to pull the car up on the flatbed without it being in neutral. And he said that the way he would do it, he was like, if I have this equipment and that equipment, like I could kind of like slide it on, and I could use, you know, like a winch and is that right, a winch and a tilt, and get it up on my flatbed without damaging your car. But I wouldn't want to do it without the right equipment and the right straps and everything. It's just not safe, and I would most likely damage your car. Because we were like, you really can't? And he was like, I could, but you know, the way I would do it if I were to do it now and not go back for the right, you know, truck or right equipment or whatever, would possibly really damage your car. On the underside, I'd be dragging it up and over, you know, and it would most likely mess up, or not most likely, but stand a good chance of really messing up your transmission, maybe even bending the frame of the car, like the undercarriage, out of shape. And my partner was like, so at that point, is it just like a junker car? Like if I wanted to resell this like second generation Prius, the values of which are actually going up right now because of just the way the market's behaving, and you know, they can go and go and go. These fairly big common issues notwithstanding, like setting them aside, these cars can can have a lot of longevity and have good resale value. So, so he was bummed. He was like, so you're saying I would do like catastrophic damage to like the frame of the car, and on top of that need to replace the transmission, on top of which, on top of whatever else is going on, whatever other necessary repairs there may be, including the very expensive back battery. So my partner was like, so it would just be a junker car at that point if it did get damaged? And Hector was like, yeah, basically. And because he was so reticent, it was like hard to tell. This was the first we were hearing about a lot of this, but he did seem like nervous and apprehensive and not like he wanted to push it. So we were like, okay, like, so that's a thing, like that's a thing to consider. And we, unintentionally, but we did my trick a little bit of kind of like hemming and hawing and having sidebars within earshot, just like, well, what should we do? What do you think? Like, I forget, we've been through so many game plans, like plan A, plan B, plan C, plan all the way through maybe like P, maybe even T. Like, we've been through the alphabet of game plans and strategies over the last few weeks, so I can't even remember what we were considering at that point in time, but we were just clearly struggling with our options. Sorry, the crow is back. We were talking about like Toyota and, like maybe if we still got it towed to Toyota, they could take a look and see if damage had been done to the car, but we needed to get it over there, and, I don't even remember. But Hector was talking to us a bit about how, yeah, Toyota probably would gouge us. Like, he was giving us a bit of information on the back battery, which made us, again, kind of more inclined to heed his take on things. It was lending credence to his very casual diagnosis of the issue, his appraisal of the issue, because he was giving us like numbers in terms of like used batteries versus new ones, and like, oh yeah, like you don't really ever know when you get a used battery how much longer it can last you, but it can last you a good while, but then the new ones do eventually die anyway, and this, that, and the other. But again, very indefinite answers, because he probably can't like tell us definitively one way or another. No one ever knows, but certainly wasn't inspiring confidence, but again making us just feel like, oh, what are we gonna do, telling it to us like it is, giving it to us straight. But he was like, yeah, Toyota's gonna really mark it up, and they also have to maybe order it, all this stuff. But then it came to light that he had a friend who worked in a shop who had batteries in stock, and I think they were used, but he could give one to us for like $500, something like that, and then such and such fee for labor. And my partner's eyes like lit up, and he was like, great, like, let's do that. Like, but how do we do that though, because there's still the towing issue. At this point, magically, Hector was like, well, let me just see if I have the like straps and like the things I need to like winch the car up on like a tilt, and like a, to tilt the flatbed, angle it, and pull your car up with minimal damage. And we like watched him like, what's the show where, oh, Angela from The Office, and like she steals the cord for the karaoke machine, and then she's like, oh, let me see, I may have seen it somewhere, when she decides to like, when they call a truce, Pam and Karen and Angela with their rival Christmas parties, and she's like, I may have seen it somewhere, and she like goes into like a file drawer in her desk. Yeah, she suddenly has it. She's like, oh, does it look like this? Is this it? It's clearly is, because she clearly knew where it was the whole time. That was definitely the vibe with Hector. like, the first place he looked, there the equipment was, and a place that he had not checked in the first place. Sorry, hold on. So he pulls everything he needs out of some, like, panels that he lifts up over one of the axles, like midway down the flatbed, and they were, like, attached, like, at various points. Like, I think they were, like, carabiners or something he had to, like, the way it looked, it was like, when would those not be there? You know? Like, I don't know, it's funny. It's like, oh, I left my nails at home or something like that. It's like they were clearly part of, like, the kit, part of, like, it wasn't something extra he would have had to, like, remember to load on. They clearly were stored in the truck. I don't want to be rude, I'm a lay person, but it was interesting the moment we agreed to take our business to his friend's shop. And then he was like, oh, it was beyond 7 miles too, but he was willing to tow us there, no fee. So I wonder if he would get, like, a kickback or, like, a finder's fee or something like that through his friend, which is fine. There's not anything inherently wrong with that, but they say that when you're dealing with car stuff, there's a lot of wheeling and dealing. It's easy to get taken advantage of. There's lots of haggling. You need to have your wits about you, yada, yada, yada. And I never want to be a misanthrope going into a situation, but it is funny. It's been a bit of a crash course these last few weeks on, like, the extent to which that is true. And it doesn't mean that everyone's being sleazy. It just means that if you're not an informed consumer, then it's just hard to know what's true and what's not. So Hector gets Bubs up on the truck, and, like, it does look like it takes a lot of work. So I also wonder if, like, oh, this ends up pertaining a lot, you know, throughout the rest of the story, but it seemed to us like it was a lot more work to load on a car that can't be put into neutral and in a way that is less likely to damage it. And it's kind of incredible how you have to really push for that, because we've learned that some people, it's not necessarily their problem, or that's kind of how they treat it. And they treat you like you're being a pain because you want them to take those steps and not just, like, yank it up onto the flatbed. They treat you like you're being either, like, neurotic. Like, some people will level with you and be like, oh yeah, it might damage your car. And you're like, well, why didn't you start with that? Obviously I don't want that. But then other people will just be like, no, it's fine. Like, I've done this 1,000 times. Like, one person in particular was like, I've done this so many times, and once was a car damaged. And we were like, well, tell us that story. Like, so what happens, and what kind of, like, liability coverage is in place to protect us if that happens, because obviously if it's preventable, we don't want that to happen, you know? Anyway, but that ends up being a whole thing throughout the rest of this story, the question of how to tow this car when it can't be put into neutral. No one knows how to put it into neutral, and no one wants to do the tow that we're now watching Hector do for the first time, with like shimmying the car up, like basically getting the front tires, because it's not all-wheel drive, so like the two back wheels will just go along, you know. They're not locked in place, they don't resist at all, and they'll just kind of turn with the front of the car, if that makes sense, with like a two-wheel drive car. So like the front wheels are the ones with which you drive and you have traction, and I'm doing a bad job explaining this, but the back ones just follow along, whereas like four-wheel or all-wheel drive, you have control over all the tires. So this was actually to our advantage because the electronics of the car were like offline. It was really kind of locked in place and couldn't be put into neutral, right? So, which was odd. We had not really put together, but like you could still open the doors. Well, maybe that wasn't so odd, because then later something kind of explained that maybe that's normal. And anyway, there's so much information to sift through. There's so many like twists and turns, all within the very granular topic of a hybrid car on the fritz. But so yeah, so Hector's trying to get the front of the car up as safely as he can, kind of like shimmying it without a lot of resistance or pulling on the frame. He is hooking it to like kind of the sturdiest, like widest part of the undercarriage, right within the front wheels. So like the armpits of the car, it almost seems like. And then he's again using like a system of like sliders to kind of shimmy the front of the car onto the tilted flatbed, and then after a certain point you can kind of start winching it, pulling it up, and like by a big chain, and the back tires will come along. So he gets Bubs up on the flatbed, and we get into May and we follow Hector. And in the car I'm talking to my partner and I'm like, look, I don't feel great about going to his friend's shop because what if it's scammy? What if we feel bad about it and then we're like stuck on their property? Then we're just gonna have to get a new tow off the property. And I've been doing a little researching and I think we could get someone to come to you and replace the battery. But they can't do that if you're like on this shop's property and we're kind of beholden to them, or we have to, get the fuck out. So maybe we just have Hector drop the car off in some street parking near the shop, and if we find out that we like the options of the shop, when we can call them in the morning and actually investigate for ourselves and get a good quote, then we're close enough that they can, we're right there. But we're not on their property and kind of stuck with that option or having to get another tow. That was my, on the fly kind of logic, but I was like, this sounds too good to be true. So I just don't feel good about it. And we were, laughing together about the whole, oh, I don't have the equipment to put your car up on the flatbed the safe way, and then magically he did. So we were like, what can we say to kind of just get out of the situation? And I'm always a big proponent, because of our ages and how people kind of see us and treat us, of just blaming the older generation, which I've done with my father's blessing before, specifically of with someone who was being kind of a bully about taxes. He was just tell them that your dad, will get super mad at you if you, this, that, and the other. It's getting a little noisier, so sorry about that. So yeah, we get in touch with Hector, and we, in time for him to stop short of actually going onto the lot. We had Hector's number because he had called us from his cell phone when he was on his way in the first place. So we give him some excuse to the effect of my partner's dad, we finally got in touch with him, and turns out he knows someone who's gonna do the repair at an even greater discount, and we have to go through him to, get the best deal. No hard feelings. And Hector is luckily not interested in charging us for the extra tow miles. Not that we benefited from them. The car is now in Oceanside, so I think we may have lost ground. I would need to look at a map and check, but regardless, I don't think we really benefited from that, other than being towed into a spot that would not be ticketed starting at midnight, because the costs were piling on, and having a dead car that can't be put into neutral and can only be moved by way of a very elaborate towing process, towing setup, that's not ideal in really populous parts of California, where parking enforcement is ticketing you, usually like on average like 70 to 90 bucks per ticket, so at least in Los Angeles. And you know, this was a pretty like busy beach town, not far from San Diego and between San Diego and Los Angeles. So we were like, yeah, let's not mess around with that. But it's a terrible situation to be in because, yeah, how do you? You only get a few days at a time, no matter where you park. So how do you deal with that? But that comes later. So Hector happily doesn't seem interested in charging us for the extra miles because I think it was he who had convinced us to like go to his friend's shop, which I don't think is like really AAA policy. So we parted as friends, and Hector got on with his night, and we were like looking at the information about the space in which we were parked. It looked like we'd bought ourselves like 2 days. Like this was a Thursday night, and we had almost 48 hours until it had to be moved again. So, and we felt like we were in an okay spot, like by a car garage, probably with cameras, maybe even security, and a really busy pizza shop that seemed really popular late at night because of just like the constant foot traffic around us, a really crapulous, really drunken crowd on average. That was a little nerve-wracking, especially because while I was sitting in May in like a side alley, like a little tucked away in the side street, just to be out of the way, but within seeing distance. What's the word? Like I could see Hector and my partner in the mirrors, but there was a really drunk older man who was like in like a what looked like his clothes from his work day. Like he was wearing very like white collar apparel, like a white collar getup, and he was just like staggering around me in the car and yelling some things. So I was having a good time after my experience in San Diego also being yelled at a good amount. And if you recall, a few weeks prior when I'd been in San Diego for a wedding, I got really harassed at a bar and like groped a lot, as did my friend. So yeah, more of the same. And so we got back in the car and we started like talking about what we were going to do next. But my partner was adamant. He was like, look, we just bought ourselves like 2 days to think about this. I'm exhausted. Let's just get home and we'll figure this out when we've had a little bit of sleep. Great idea. That's not really how my mind works, which is why this has been so exhausting, this whole situation. I can't really let things go like that when I'm trying to like solve for X, you know. I can get really fixated and I'm really anxious with, I have a lot of something, it might be a thing other people have too, but it's just such a thing for me that I started using the term without really like checking around if other people experience it, so it could very well be a thing, but something I experience, that my partner knows I experience in heaps, is transitional anxiety. So if you're here with me all day, I'm great, I'm happy, but if you tell me that you're on your way out the door and you're gonna leave, and then I get the expectation that that's what's going to happen, and then you don't, it doesn't matter that it would have been just as well, you know, like it would have been fine if you just stayed the whole day. That transition taking a long time makes me really anxious. Like I think I would really struggle with pregnancy. Like I think I would be like clawing my eyes out by the end just from like the anxiety of the transition. So I really struggle with that. So in like a situation that's unresolved and ongoing and kind of hanging over my head, I wish my brain could be more avoidant. Because like I mean, I can procrastinate, but there are certain things that I just can't set down, can't look away from even for a few moments. So my brain was very occupied, just background processing this situation. And also in the foreground as well, a good amount, but like processing this situation at all times, gnawing at me. But my partner was like right, especially like on a logical level. I agreed. I was like, okay, like yes, let's just, call it a day, get home. But of course, I'm like researching things all the time, and I'm also trying to keep up with my channel, so I'm like editing videos. I edited videos all day in that lobby, and I edited videos all during the car drama whenever I had time. So yeah, I think I was not giving my brain as much of a break as I should have, but so it goes. So flashing forward to sort of like what we landed on in the coming days, I started feeling like our best option, because my partner does know someone here in Los Angeles who is really nice and knowledgeable about electric cars. Like, he works at an electric car repair shop, and my partner used to serve him at a coffee shop, and like before the pandemic, and he would give this person lots of free coffee all the time, just saw him all the time, and they hit it off. So they have a good relationship, and there was only so much he could do for my partner when it came to that catalytic converter theft. But in general, with some like lesser costs, essentially giving my partner the family discount, the family rate on a bunch of things, like within reason. Like, again, he wasn't really able to do much for my partner when it came to the cost of the replacement catalytic converter and that cat shield that he installed on top of it to reduce the likelihood of future theft of the same part, right? Because there's, well, if you've listened to my last video, or maybe you know from your own experience, or from hearing all about it on the news, or someone you know had a catalytic converter theft. But yeah, those are tough. So I got it into my head that, because we really wished that the car, like what we just kept kicking ourselves about, was the fact that yes, this battery was going to die at some point, but if not for this whole passport imbroglio, this whole passport misadventure, it more than likely would have died within 7 miles of that repair shop, because Los Angeles does have a sprawl, but like we don't go that far. Like, the complete opposite side of town is like 11 miles, so like we could have gotten basically just like 2 AAA tows in a row. You're not supposed to do that, but worked it out so that we could have either gotten a tow to the shop for free or for fairly cheap, like whatever it would be on top of 7 miles. So just kicking himself that the car broke down so far from home and created this whole mess. Yeah, that was tough, but it was what it was. So he was really struggling with the idea of paying to have it towed over 100 miles back to Los Angeles. So rough. Like, towing companies, it would have been super exorbitant, like over $1,000. You can do something called, like, you can get your car shipped, like long distance tows, like for people who are moving, or at friendlier rates. They're not going to charge you as much per mile, because they're giving you, like, a package. Not a package, they're giving you like a flat rate. So just the kind of business they do, it wouldn't make sense. It wouldn't be competitive to charge you per mile. Whereas local towing companies, again, they make their money from local jobs. So shorter distances, and they're gonna, oh sorry, it's so noisy. They're gonna charge you accordingly. But even those were looking quite expensive, and also there was this question of like the car not being able to be put into neutral, and we went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and my partner was trying to find shops in Oceanside, and the prospect of replacing this battery affordably was super murky. Like the idea was, I mean, we were talking about this before we'd really started shopping around, but just doing our research, it was like he was really interested in a used battery. He did not think he could afford the full price for a new one in labor. And it's just, again, really murky when you get a used battery. Like, once you take it up, and we were talking about like how dangerous it is when your car just like dies somewhere, especially how much he does drive on highways. So I was like, are we just kicking the can down the road? And he was like, do I really have a choice? And we were just going back and forth. But I found a third option I felt was strong, was promising, of having a company come out to the car, because there are some companies that service like all of California, Nevada, you know, like they have these fleets of vans that just go out, sometimes even just like technicians and sedans. They go out and replace your battery, because this is such a common issue with hybrids, the big back battery. And they used refurbished batteries, so old ones that they've refurbished, and they're warranted. You get a lifetime warranty, which was really appealing, because if you are going to get a battery that isn't new, you kind of want some assurance that you're not going to be replacing it again really soon. So yeah, I was looking into one company in particular, because there are a few that offer this, and the rates were good, but not too good to be true. It was like $1,200, $1,300, maybe $1,400 with tax, and it covered installation and a lifetime warranty. And there were specifics in terms of like I could read the fine print in terms of what would potentially void your warranty. So they definitely like worked it out, and all of it seemed reasonable to me. And yeah, it was like a median price, which was what I was looking for. Like, not something that was preposterous, like too good to be true. Like some of these like deals, like the deal that the guy was, like Hector was offering us through his friend at the shop, sounded too good to be true, which was why it appealed to my partner, because he's feeling very wishful at this point in time, because he's in just such a difficult situation, and that's an easy moment in which to be taken advantage of. So, but then like new batteries, it can be like several $1,000s depending on where you go. So yeah, something again that felt kind of in the middle made sense to me for what this business was offering, you know, and that they could offer that, and they could offer lifetime warranties, because A, the batteries are not new parts, they're being refurbished, but also like they don't have as much overhead. Like, this is what they do, this is the thing in which they specialize, because they've realized there's a demand for convenient, affordable, reliable replacement of hybrid batteries. So I was looking at the reviews, and they also seemed like real, in that all of them were great, except like a few that took issue, I think, with like the communication, and saying it was really difficult to set up an appointment, and griping about the customer service, but very few, if any, gripes about the battery replacement, the product itself. So it seemed not too good to be true again, but good but not too good. So I was like, I think this is worth it? And my partner was struggling with that price tag. I think he proposed. He was like, will you just let me call the shop, that Bubs is at right now? Wouldn't it be great if we can get a deal? And I understand that that battery might be a shit battery, but it can at least get Bubs home, and then maybe when I save up more money, I can get, a warranted one or something like that. And I didn't like that idea because I was like, what if Bubs dies again, on the highway, and then we're just doing this all over again with repeat costs, and it's also never a given that you're gonna get out of that situation safely the next time around. But, it was his car and his money, and I was like, yeah, okay, if it makes you feel better to check with that shop, let's talk to them when they open in the morning. And we also made a plan, I think because my partner worked on Sunday or something like that, to go back. We had bought ourselves a little time, but we needed fairly shortly to return to Oceanside and arrange for Bubs to be moved. Okay, so there's a lot going on now, but I reached out to the battery replacement company and got an email back or something like that, that the soonest available appointment was in a week. And we were like, fuck, yikes, but okay, no harm in making that appointment. If we just cancel 24 hours ahead, there's no penalty, so we'll make it, so we're in line. We even asked her, do you have, we really need, this car is not parked in our driveway, it's parked in another city. We really need to get it home, and, do you have anything sooner if we're willing to pay a little extra? And he was like, no, that's, there are people in front of you. No, we don't offer that. And I was like, okay, fair enough. And he wanted the address, and I was like, we don't know the exact address, let me get that. And he's like, why don't you just give me your home address for now? And I was like, well, that's not where the car is. He's like, that's fine, I'll call you to arrange the particulars the day before and give you your appointment window, your exact timing on Friday. And so it shouldn't matter so much that it's an hour and a half, 2 hours outside Los Angeles. That doesn't make a huge difference as long as we have a day to plan. So yeah, just put your home address for now, yada yada yada. And yeah, how disinterested he was in making the sale, and the fact that there were all these people in line in front of us, it did inspire confidence, because he definitely didn't need my business. He was not trying to keep me on the hook, so I felt pretty good about that, actually. And yeah, so we had that tentative appointment, and then the question of where to put the car for a week that we could afford to arrange. Sorry, someone's being really loud. But yeah, what could we affordably do with the car for the intervening, for the week's wait? So yeah, for one reason or another, I don't know if there was also an issue of again, I can't remember the particulars. There were so many that we were holding at various points. There were the hours, the parking restrictions for that first spot in Carlsbad, and then the parking sign near that pizza place in Bubs' second location. That makes it sound like a true crime thing or a serial killer thing, never let them take you to a second location. But yeah, the second location, and then there was the parking issue with the next location. I can't remember the hours and days of all of them, but it was certainly different than Los Angeles in that some parts of Oceanside seemed to do an every 2 weeks cycle, has to be moved by the second Friday of every month and the fourth Friday. It was a lot to retain, but this one was a more popular, busy area, this second spot by the pizza place and the repair shop that Hector had recommended. So what was I gonna say? So it was on a weekly basis. There was street cleaning, and it was fast approaching, coming up soon. So for multiple reasons, Bubs could not stay there. We needed to get Bubs to a different location. I also didn't like him being in such a busy area. On one hand, maybe there are more eyes on him, so he's less likely to get fucked with. On the other hand, more eyes on him, more likely to get fucked with. So yeah, it was just like there were just so many things, so many decisions to make, and never feeling very confident about any of them because so much had gone wrong already, and we just didn't really know what was wrong with Bubs, and we didn't have any extra money to throw around. So yes, we were going back to Oceanside. This was either like the very next day, like Friday, or I think Saturday. And no, it was Friday. It was Friday. Shit, what a mess. So the next day, we got back in the car at like 4 or 5 p.m. because that's when I was available to take my car. And traffic was terrible on the way up. So we got there at like 8 o'clock, 8 something. So yeah, we get there and we spend about 30 minutes scoping out the surrounding suburbs. Oh yeah, that was part of the plan I hatched. So when I was trying to convince my partner to go with this battery replacement company, this mobile company, I was like, think about how we can move Bubs to a safe place and have him there for a week, out of the way, somewhere that feels really good, like we can check it out ahead of time and they can go there to do the repair. And he was not sold on it because he was like, where are we gonna find that we're not gonna get like a street parking, like a ticket on top of all this? And so I like used Google Maps, like Street View, to like find a part of town that looked good. Like I saw a camper parked there and I was like, that's a good sign. And just a really bosky neighborhood with some areas that were kind of like not right in view of someone's house, but like there was like a fence with some ivy growing over it, and as far as I could tell, no parking signage, especially on this little cul-de-sac. So I was like, ding ding ding, winner. And I like remembered the name of the street, took pictures of it, and I think at that point I got him on board with my plan. And I was like, look, you can still call the shop in the morning and we can scope things out. Like, you're not committed to anything. Bubs is where Bubs is. That's not going to change without a lot of effort on our part. So you have time to do what feels best. There is a lot going on at this point, so I think, I think we actually didn't call the shop until we were on our way, even though there were other opportunities. We were just fielding so much at that time and still working, throughout all this. So on our way up, we decided to call the shop because, we're going to be right there, so maybe it would work out really well. The guy on the phone, he was like, oh yeah, we don't even carry that battery, but I think Toyota does, so we could get it for you through Toyota, or you can go to Toyota yourself. Like, he didn't even seem interested in our business, knowledgeable about hybrids and the issue itself. And we were like, well, how much would that be? And he goes, I think like $5,000 or $6,000, which isn't even true. So, and he again wasn't like trying to sell it to us. He didn't even have it, so he just had no idea what he was talking about. And my partner was like, okay, thank you very much, and hung up the phone. I was like, fuck that. So suddenly, happily, he was super on board with the replacement company and the mobile company, and we made our way to that neighborhood I'd identified ahead of time, and we started scoping things out. My partner needed a while, like, looking around. He was clearly very anxious about where to park his car. It wasn't just about parking enforcement, like we obviously didn't want it anywhere that was too obvious because we didn't want locals noticing it and calling it in, because this whole area we found lots of places. Like the cul-de-sac I originally saw had no restrictions, but it felt bad. Like something about the houses, and we even saw someone out walking their dog and they just were so suspicious and so up in arms when they saw us. One of those like neighborhood vibes. And we were just like looking around in my little sedan. Like I don't you never think you're being fishy, but when people treat you that way, you're like, I guess I look like I'm here to make some trouble. And just the defensive vibe, we were like, yeah, this neighborhood is not the vibe. So we kept looking, and we did find some areas that were promising. And again, they only ticketed the second and fourth Fridays of every month, and we were actually just on the other side of the second, I think. The fourth, so we were like, that works well. But the issue is, I looked up local law, and regardless of parking enforcement, no vehicle can be parked in the same spot for more than 72 hours, which is like, what if you live there and you're like going out of town for a week, you know, and you have a car in your driveway and a car on the street, like, so of course if you don't live in an area, you don't know how seriously people take that and how seriously enforced it is. But it's one thing to get parking tickets, it's another thing to get impounded. Not just because you have to pay to get your car off the lot, to free your car, but also, again, if they can't get the car in neutral, they're gonna tow it. And people have definitely had their cars damaged in regular towing situations, and their cars are impounded. I think there is some liability, like you can sue or like file a claim, but like that's gonna be a whole process, and again, we'd be without one of our cars. Living in Los Angeles as a 2-car household by necessity, like my partner, he really relies on his own car. That's why he had sprung for a car a year ago and wanted one with good fuel efficiency. Yeah, that just was the last thing we wanted, was the car impounded. And it just sucked that we didn't know anyone in the area, and we couldn't like check on the car without spending tons of gas money and going back and forth. And we already had at this point gone back and forth so many times, like including that wedding, and the fact that between the wedding and the passport I had done a photo shoot a good way outside Los Angeles in that direction. So like we were just so tired of this trip and this highway and this entire situation. And we did put out messages on like social media, and we asked with friends. We had a lead with my partner's best friend's roommate in Austin, who was actually originally from this part of California and knew some people, but that would have been street parking as well. And yes, I could have kept an eye on the car, but we were also in an area that like, they're adults. Even if they're doing us a favor, they can't watch the car all the time, and it was not in an area that felt, when we did our own research, we got the address, and we like again looked through Google Maps, and we were like, because there was the question of the catalytic converter at the back, in the back of our minds, in the backs of our minds. And well, wait, I need to get to that. So we were just like pulling out all the stops, doing everything we could, calling everyone we could, researching different options. Yeah. So we find a spot we feel good about after a lot of circling, because my partner again just needs time to find somewhere that feels right. And it's kind of positioned between a school and a church, and it looks like there's enough traffic there, like on Sundays. It was about to be a Sunday, and also like during the week, maybe if a camp convened at that school, we were like, it's possible that no one will think twice of a car parked here. And also, like, it felt safe. Feels gross to say, but the cops were constantly driving through, and my partner was really anxious about that. He was like, I don't like this area, like there are cops around driving through. And I was like, yeah, but cops don't care about cars parked in the wrong place. That's parking enforcement. But the good news is, if someone's like literally ripping your catalytic converter out, that they might care about. So he was really anxious about the police presence in the area. But it was like our best option. He really thought the police were like following us at one point. Where he's from kind of a small town where cops, in addition to like the way they profile in general, like my partner is white and, you know, shouldn't have a disproportionate number of experiences with the police, just statistically, except that where he's from, the cops really like hassle teenagers a lot. So he's had a lot of experiences, a lot of negative experiences with cops and state troopers, park rangers, all those different levels of authority, different arms of law enforcement. Not like park rangers necessarily are, but actually I don't know how they're affiliated, but yeah, just different types of authority like that. And yeah, obviously he's been very lucky in his experiences. None of them ended particularly badly, and that's a really lucky thing in this country. And yeah, but he's had enough negative experiences to be really wary. And you know, when a cop is behind us in the car, he gets really anxious, and he's like, they're definitely like gonna pull us over, like they're. So he was not like thrilled with the area, but again, we were like, it is what it is. We have to, like, it's getting late. I was really pushing. I was like, we have to make a decision. We don't know what we don't know, but we're doing our best. We're making our best call, and let's just go for it. And if that spot looks good, and that they can definitely get it there. And we were a little worried that it was on an incline, but we were like agreeing that we'd ask the tow person if that mattered or not. And we were like, we need to move on. I was definitely pushing to move on, get back to the car, call AAA, get on with things, because it was getting late. It was almost 9 o'clock. We get to the car, we call AAA. I'm gonna speed through this part, but this night sucked. It sucked. When we first called AAA, in addition to there being a glitch, where if you spoke even a second too early when they were going through their menu options, the automated menu options, the call dropped, but it didn't let you know it had dropped. It just got really echoey, like a weird connection, and no one ever picked up, which you have to learn the hard way by staying on the line way too long and not putting together that that's what's happening until you've done that several times. And so we get through to someone, we explain the situation and that the car can't be put into neutral and what we need from a tow. There are other little things, like I made the mistake of saying like, oh, we can't be parked here, so we need to be towed away, and apparently that's a no-no. Like AAA won't tow your car just to help you avoid. It's funny because what difference does it make if you're like, I'm just towing it here because it's broken down and I live here and I need to move it here. You could totally make something up, right? But the second I said those words, she was like shutting it down. She was like, oh, I can't help you, miss. And I like had to backpedal and lie and be like, no, I meant I don't even know what I said, like last night when we had AAA out, and I forget, I just like have spoken to so many people the last few weeks about cars and insurance and policies and towing and scheduling and dispatch and blah 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 blah. But so she took down the notes and arranged for a tow, and if only that had been the end of it. But we ended up having to like push and push and push. I think we must have, between the two of us, called AAA 15 times that night. And each time it was the whole process. Just like, no one ever knew. Like, the information didn't seem to be getting from one call to the next. We kept having to repeat ourselves, repeat the information. There was some good communication on their end. So originally they said they'd found someone for us after like a while. We waited for a while. They're like, we found someone, they're on their way. That tow company called us and was like, oh, we can't do that tow. We looked at the notes and we don't have that equipment. And because of what we learned from Hector, we were like, is everyone gonna say this? Because they know going into it what an elaborate tow it is, and they don't want to do it for AAA, you know? Like, it'd be one thing if they could like charge you out the nose for it, but they don't want to do that kind of tow, you know, at AAA rates or whatever. And they knew that going in, so they could like turn us down. So AAA dispatched this company, and they called us to say, we're not coming. Sorry, AAA's wrong, we're not coming. But we'll call AAA and we'll let them know, and they'll set you up with someone else. At this point, I was getting pretty cynical, so we waited for a little while, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna call AAA even though it's a hassle. And my phone, like, we were sitting parked, and we didn't want to run the car all night, waste the gas money, so we were making do with very little phone charge, and then we'd charge for a few minutes at a time. And then, you know, the cycle repeats. We'd wear our phone batteries down. And I was just trying to get work done, you know, editing work. I think that night I was editing the second trying makeup video, the most recent one I put out. I was trying to get that edit done. So yeah, having to constantly call AAA instead of just being able to like manage your feelings and your bodily needs to the best of your ability as you wait in a car for hours and hours, but having to like keep being on a phone listening to these automated messages, and then like really like pushing with someone and trying to like advocate for yourself, make your case, repeat the same information over and over again. So this time that I called after that towing company said that they would relay the message to AAA. AAA had no idea, of course. So they were like, oh, they're not coming. And we were like, no, you really need to like emphasize, like, please make sure when you find someone and you tell us you found someone that it actually is compatible with our needs, our situation. They need to be able to tow a car, like, with as little damage as possible, tow a car that can't be put into neutral. So we really need a wheel tow. Oh yeah, because I think, oh that's right, so I was completely wrong when I said that Hector got Bob's up on the flatbed. Hector just did like a wheel tow. Does that make sense? Or like components came out of, that's the other thing, like they are part of the truck that he was using. I think they really are like part of the truck, permanent fixtures. Like, that can be taken out, taken down, and used. So yeah, we were looking for a wheel tow. As per Hector's insistence that that's what we needed. I don't remember actually. Okay, so now I'm remembering. To get a car that can't be put into neutral onto a flatbed requires those sliders and being really careful and a lot of work. Getting it onto a wheel tow also requires more work than a regular tow, but not as much as the first situation I described. So I think Hector used a wheel tow and was disgruntled to have to do it and use the special equipment. I think people like it when you can just put the car in neutral and yank it up onto a flatbed and call it a day. So yeah, but so we were really pushing for a wheel tow at this point, as we'd been told, and just to avoid possibly getting someone who couldn't, like wasn't experienced enough to say, like maybe they were willing to do the convoluted way to get it up on the flatbed, but we'd be taking on some risk, right? So we didn't want to do that. We preferred the wheel tow. We were comfortable with it. We saw Hector do it. And in that case, like the car is following behind the tow truck. So we were asking for a wheel tow at this point because I guess the verbiage that we used in the first place with dispatch, clearly they didn't understand, like, sorry for this. Like, the towing companies can read between the lines and be like, oh, we don't want to deal with a car that can't be put into neutral, especially if the car owner is being fussy about it and knows that that can create some issues. But the dispatch didn't know enough to like really push it, at least on this particular night. So we were really emphasizing with the next few people we got that we needed a wheel tow. And we kept having to call and follow up and call and follow up, and it was just such an awful night. Everyone was just treating us like such a nuisance. And you know, the night before, just the night before, in an area 10 minutes away, we'd gotten the exact kind of tow we needed and were requesting within like 15 minutes. So it's like, it really did feel like the problem was that they knew going into it what we were asking for. Whereas with Hector, we'd managed to get him to begrudgingly perform this kind of tow for us. And suddenly we were equipped with this knowledge that they really don't want to do it if they don't have to. I would have never known if it weren't for that weird thing of Hector having that about-face moment and suddenly having an incentive to do it for us. Because he hadn't said, it's not really worth it to me, I don't really want to do that for what I'm getting from AAA. He said, I can't do that. And that's just different. Like, I'd rather know, you know, what the issue is so I can, like, communicate around it, about it with prospective towers, you know, be like, do you need extra money to do this? But it was just that they wouldn't do it. And we kept getting bailed on and waiting and waiting and waiting, and my partner was losing his mind because I do really well in confinement and like cars. I can be in cars for long periods of time, especially if I'm on a task and I'm hyper focused, I'm editing a video. He was feeling so boxed in, he went and read on the curb. Like, he sat between my car and Bub's and just read. And he was just getting really, really freaked out and agitated. It was also really humid, so close to the ocean. It was really swampy air, and again, a really like drunken night crowd. And we were ultimately there until like 2 in the morning. And I had to 2 in the morning. And at one point he had the idea, he was like, well, why don't we call the company that did it for us last night? Like, they're not so far away, we know they're contracted with AAA. So let's call them and ask if they can send Hector out. And we called them, and we called them, and they were like, oh yeah, we can do that, it'll cost this much. And we were like, with the wheel tow, and they're like, yep. And we were like, okay, but we have AAA, and like, can you do that through AAA? And they're like, yeah, but they would have to dispatch us, that's not really how it works. And we were like, no problem, they're actually struggling to find someone for us, so they'll be happy to know. We'll call them. Great, like, we'll call them and let them know that you're able to do this and you have the equipment tonight to do it, because they were ready to come to take our money and do it right then and there. And we call AAA. AAA takes the information and calls them, and calls us and says that company can't do it, can't do the tow we're asking for. So then we're like positive. We're like, So this is it. This is the problem. They don't want to do a wheel tow unless they can charge us a lot to do it. And they're not being straight with AAA about it. They're not being straight with us about it. Because he said, again, he didn't say, no, we don't want to do that through AAA. They were like, sure, if you can arrange it. And then we waste our time trying to arrange it, and no one will just be honest with us. So my partner was like hopping mad at that point, and so was I. So we called AAA and we were like, this is what happened with this company. Oh, and then the company stopped answering the phone when we would call. So we, at that point, were like, we'll just, like, yeah, I guess we'll just pay them to do it and deal with it, and they wouldn't even take our call. And so we, like, had to call AAA and be like, we're supposed to be covered, and there's no, like, fine print in my AAA membership that says, you know, not these kinds of tows. You're supposed to be able to offer all kinds of tows, and we're not getting picked up. Like, no one is taking it. And I know that they'll say, like, oh, it's just, like, you never know when people are available, and we're like, that's fine. We're fine waiting. We know sometimes it's a busy night. People are available and they don't want to do it. So what do we do then? You know, like, wait until someone is bored enough or feels bad enough for us to do it. Like, we're gonna be here forever. Like, we don't live here. We can't sleep here. Like, we're just sitting in our car. And I know people have had just nightmares waiting for AAA, so I don't feel that bad for us for like 6 hours. But it was just frustrating because it was 6 hours and counting, and there was no end in sight. No one wanted to do this. And waiting for a tow that might never come. So after enough hassling, and I think my partner, like, speaking to someone higher up at AAA and really pushing that this is not good coverage, like, we don't feel taken care of, and that this company, like, lied to them and to us as well, and, like, please advocate for us, because these companies won't even, like, they have no qualms about leaving us here and ignoring us and whatever, even if they are available and do have the equipment. So finally we get a call from the first company, and the guy on the phone is such an asshole. He's like, hey, remember me? I'm the one you talked to earlier. And I was like, oh yeah. And he's like, yeah, you're the one that wanted the wheel tow. And I'm like, well, yeah, not necessarily wheel tow, but because again, we didn't need a wheel tow. We needed to be towed without being, like, dragged, and we just wanted to not incur damage to the car and couldn't be put in neutral, right? But he cuts me off mid-sentence. He's like, oh yeah. Like, I can't even, I've never had an experience like that. He's, like, making fun of me, like, back to me on the phone. And he was like, well, whatever, like, I'm coming now. Like, I got the stinger out. I didn't have to, but I'm bringing my stinger, and thought I'd help you all out. To make this a little shorter, he comes, he's so condescending. He won't look at me. I think he was just, like, really sexist. He would only talk to my partner and would, like, want to explain car stuff to him and be like, see, look at this. And he was like, see, you all made a lot of trouble for yourself because by insisting that you needed a wheel tow, like, it's your fault you've waited so long. And even if that was true, we were like, well, that's just the information we were given by another tow person working in this area, you know? And so he gets the car up on the stinger. He's like, it's fine, like, I'll do this for you all. But just so you know, he's the one that was like, in my entire career doing this, and he was like early 20s, he was like, in my entire time doing this, one time have I had a car get damaged, and it's so easy if you know what you're doing and whatever, but, you know, have it your way. I'm using a stinger that again will, like, lift the front of the car and pull it. And even when I'm, like, handing him my AAA card, and my license, he won't ask me for them. He says to my partner, I just need, like, he won't look at me, and he's like, I just need her cards. And anyway, that's a whole side story. So he was awful, and he wasn't even like nice to my partner. He was pretty condescending, but yeah, but he was very rude to me. But whatever, we just like it's his world, and we're just living in it because we need a tow. And we give him an address of like where our friend is gonna meet us to do a repair the next morning, and he tows us there, says the hill isn't a problem, parks the car, and is on his way. And I'm like taking pictures of the car and just like the area, the signs and everything I can, and we were exhausted. We get everything that's remaining out of Bubs because we're gonna leave Bubs there for a week is the idea, and we, you know, put up the sun shield, put up the trunk kind of, what's it called, screen, you know, that you can use with the hatchback so people can't see into your trunk. Oh, actually I think we opted to leave it open. We just wanted it to look like a completely empty car, no reason to smash windows, that sort of thing. And we head home. This is getting really long, but the day goes by. We're feeling like we can relax because we're like, we got it to a place it's allowed to be parked. There's nothing else we can do now, and we're gonna get that repair, and we're gonna be able to drive Bubs back to Los Angeles in a little less than a week. So we just gotta keep living our lives in the meantime. Then the next night, so 2 nights later, and by the way, we've like called out of, like I had a lot of weekend commitments. I was supposed to go to like a big volunteer event on Sunday and actually be a trainer, be a leader at that event, and I just like I couldn't do it. Oh no, we missed that on Saturday actually. Just it doesn't matter, but I can't remember if that second tow was Friday or Saturday night. I really can't. The point is that I missed a big event, and then we called out of doing something with a friend, like filming some underwater scenes for a short that he's doing, in which we're acting together, which is fun. But we were just bailing on things left and right and barely able to keep ourselves together. If you think about it, we'd gotten so little sleep that week from that late night of that tow, the less late but still pretty late night of the preceding the first tow, and then working backwards, you know, getting up super early to go to San Diego, getting up at like 4 or something, and then the night before that getting up at 4 or something to call in to get an appointment. Lots of insomnia from anxiety. I was working late on lots of videos. We were exhausted. I think this is about the point at which my partner was developing an eye twitch, but I actually think it may have come later because I think that really kicked off at the point when things began feeling super fucked, super impossible. We've not even gotten to that point yet, so hang in there. My throat's doing surprisingly well, and it's pretty quiet, so I'm just gonna keep going, okay? At least 24 hours had passed since we got that second very rude tow, but since we got home at 5 that night, or we got to bed at 5 that night, it's kind of hard to recall whether it was the next full night of sleep or the one after that, but at some point I like woke up. I don't think I'd successfully fallen asleep yet, but I like shot up in bed and I was like, we can't leave Bubs in that spot for this whole week, because all the anxiety that had been kind of back burner anxiety about the catalytic converter, you know, something we just had to, a risk we had to take, suddenly pushed to the forefront, and I was convinced that the catalytic converter was going to get stolen on top of everything else, be an additional $4,000, just ruin us. And definitely meant that my partner would have to sell the car for scraps. I do believe that catalytic converter thefts are treated as sorry, I spoke too soon. I do believe they're treated as grand theft auto because it's such an expensive part of the car without which the car can't work. Like, it's only, you can drive for like 20 minutes very cacophonously. You can get by for like 20 minutes before the car starts really struggling and you're incurring damage to the car. You're risking serious damage to the vehicle. So that has been like the least of our concerns. I think when we were just trying to get things to like a stable, workable place, but once I was like, oh, Bubs is in a safe spot, and was able to relax, like safe from parking enforcement, safer, you know, from like, I don't know, the weird drunken crowd at that pizza place, whatever that means. I was like, safe, like no car is safe from catalytic converter theft in the state of California right now. Like, it's just a huge issue, and I was just getting more and more anxious, and I was like, we have to go, like, we have to go back. We have to go back to the future. Just kidding. We have to go back to Oceanside. And that was the last thing my partner wanted. He was like, Remy, I just think if I have to go back there, I'm gonna snap. And like, we can't afford more gas money. We can't do that again right now. And you know, we haven't even like gotten to work a normal amount between all these emergency trips. And we, you know, he had a really good point, but I was just like beside myself, and I was like, the catalytic converter is gonna get stolen if it hasn't already. Like, we were so dumb. I was blaming myself mostly because it was my plan to park it somewhere and wait a week and whatever. We did not have a lot of options, but I had really pushed for that, and I at that point felt like I had failed to consider the risk with the catalytic converter. Not even a risk, it felt like a mathematical probability at that point that it would be stolen. Just with the frequency at which these thefts are occurring, and I even did some Googling and saw articles saying it was particularly bad in Oceanside. And that just sent me over the edge. I was like, I'm so stupid. I'm so sorry, we have to go back. And my partner was like, well, we can't do it tonight anyway. And I was like, but we have to tomorrow. And he was like, we'll see. And I was like, no, we can't. Like, you don't understand. I'm so worried. This feels like it's definitely happening, or it's definitely gonna happen. Not even like a psychic feeling. It's just, again, like, if you really think about it, like, who are you kidding yourself? We were like, oh, it's in a place that's somewhat out of the way, and you know, people can see the car, but not too out in the open, not too conspicuous. Well, what a perfect place to take 20 minutes to remove a cat shield and steal a catalytic converter. Going to a little more trouble, but if you have the privacy to do so and the time to do so in the middle of the night, or even in the middle of the day in a lot of these cases, then maybe you will. You know, like, the shields are deterrents. Ultimately, just that. Just those. So yeah, I was very stressed. I could not really sleep, and I said, we need help. We really need help at this point. We need like adults. So I asked my partner to reach out to his father and ask if he would help and see if he, you know, knew anybody, and if he would help. Just ask if he could drive us to Oceanside and help us arrange for a tow, maybe back to Los Angeles, and we would just pay for it and, you know, have that debt, and at least he'd have a car, and, you know, a tow at that point would cost a lot less than a new catalytic converter, because we were trying to save on the tow, thinking like, oh, the money we save on the tow we can put toward the repairs, but factoring in the catalytic converter, it's all moot, right? Whatever you've saved on a tow, like, you're still going to need those other repairs, and now you need the catalytic converter, and you still need a tow because you don't have a catalytic converter, so can't make the trip home anyway, even if the battery does get replaced by that company. So at that point I was like in tears, and I was like, we need help. I've thought of everything I can think of. I'm exhausted, you're exhausted. Let's pull out the big guns, and please just text your father so he sees it in the morning and can like plan his day knowing that we're asking this of him, because my partner kind of wanted to procrastinate and avoid, understandably so. And so I was like, I'll let it go tonight if you can just fire off that text. So at like 2 or 3 in the morning, my partner's father gets this text from us explaining the whole situation. He very kindly agrees to help us, but we do have to keep pushing all the particulars. Like, he's like, why can't I just call a tow, like arrange for it from Los Angeles? And we're like, because it's all moot. If there's no catalytic converter, we really need to know that that's still there. It could be gone by now. We just had to explain the neutral, like the car not going into neutral. We had to explain everything we'd figured out up to this point about this car to someone, to a lay person who, you know, knew a lot, like as, you know, a middle-aged adult with lots of life experience. But still, like, you just have to like keep pushing. Like, again, anytime someone entered the situation after us, we had to catch them up and be like, we're way ahead of you, like we've already thought of this, that, and the other. But something he brought to the table that I wish we'd, you know, asked for help sooner. But he was like, I actually know people out not too far from Oceanside, not in Oceanside. So again, we were getting further from Los Angeles. We're just not getting any closer, you know, in for a penny, in for a pound. But he was like, I can pay for a tow there if, you know, like, you're really set on having this repair and you just need somewhere safe for the car to be until, because he wasn't offering, I don't think, he couldn't offer, my partner's father couldn't offer to like pay for a really exorbitant tow to Los Angeles. But he was like, I do know people who can house the car, and if they're farther than AAA can tow, I'll pay the difference. So that was really good news, and we really had to push because, again, my partner's father was like, why do we have to be there if I can finagle it that the tow truck, the tower can just take it directly to this fourth location. Oh my gosh, 4th location, 5th if you include the highway. So we had to keep pushing this catalytic converter issue, and we really needed to go check. And we also wanted to like follow the tow and make sure that it was done the way we wanted after the huge hassle and nobody wanting to do it that way. So we went with my partner's father, and it felt so good to have an adult involved with a nicer car with like good air conditioning and a good sound system, playing some disco music. He like got us Chipotle on the way out of town. We were just living the life, and we were able to like relax. I was able to edit with some big noise canceling headphones in the back and kind of zone out, and my partner was able to like catch up with his father and kind of relax because, again, there was that feeling that we had help finally to some extent. And it's funny because at points it did seem like my partner's father thought maybe we were being neurotic, and people just are really good at spending your money for you if they think that maybe you're wasting your time trying to save money. And it's hard sometimes to be like, I'm not being like frugal or a penny pincher, like this will break us, you know, like we don't have a choice. Like, I mean, we have a lot more wiggle room than a lot of people, but even then, like, only to a certain extent. I can't just keep putting things on my credit card. My partner can't keep putting things on his. Sorry for this noise, but I'm gonna keep going. So initially, the plan was that my partner's father had a family friend who had a workplace in the vicinity of Oceanside. So my partner's father's family friend, let's call him Ben. Ben had, sorry, it's a very annoying noise, I know. It's going though. Ben had a workplace with a gated garage and 24-hour security. And even though it's not unheard of for catalytic converters to be stolen even in garages, we were like, that sounds amazing compared to where Bubs is now. So yeah, we were so thankful it was all gonna work out. But when they found out when the appointment was, that it wasn't until Saturday, and even then the company would not confirm it until the following Friday, the Friday preceding the tentative Saturday appointment, but following the Sunday I'm currently describing. So when they heard that, they were like, oh, like that might be a little long for it to be at our office. So like the couple, the wife doesn't work at the office, but at Ben's office, and the couple, Ben and Anne, said just bring Bubs to our house. It's a little farther out, but again, my partner's father was going to pay the difference. That's fine. And so we called AAA, we arranged for this. It is so funny because my partner's father is like making the calls and I can hear the telltale echo because, like me, he gets frustrated with the constant automated message. It's so annoying. It starts to like hurt your brain after the umpteenth time, as I'm sure you can imagine. So he's like rushing to repeat the same answers: California, Oceanside, and I hear the telltale echo and I'm like, oh, excuse me, mister, I think you're not connected. And he like, I think at first maybe grumbles a little bit, like, really? But it's like my partner and I had just been through it. We were experts in all the banal, just the stupid little shit that was germane to this messy, horrible situation. We'd had a crash course. So people bring great other ideas to the table, but there's something to be said for like, it's great to have fresh eyes, but also sometimes you don't have the words and the time to just like, apprise someone of like everything, like just dump everything you've learned about a situation, all the stupid particulars into their head, like Trinity in the Matrix being like, and like, downloading new information, new skills. So I wish we could have just been like, okay, this is everything, this is everything we're considering, these are all the factors, just airdrop, right, from brain to brain. So he was like, boy, AAA is taking a long time, and we were also like, he wanted to like hang out at a coffee shop, and we were like, I don't know if we should stray too far from the car. Like, sometimes they don't give you a lot of warning if they're local, and they gave us like a 3-minute warning, and we were like 8 minutes from the car, and we had to like scramble. It was things like that where we didn't want to tell my partner's father what to do, and he had a lot of know-how, from his life experience, but also like we had a lot of know-how in terms of this very, very specific experience, right? So the tow comes, and in this instance, the tower, thank goodness, not the same person as before, because it's the same company. We knew it would be because the jerk from 2 nights before had very ominously said, well, if you want to tow in this area, it's gonna be us, which wasn't even true necessarily, but he was right in so far as like this next tow, this 3rd or 4th tow, whatever it was, if you're counting like highway services, it was that company. So I was so happy when a different technician stepped out of the truck, the cab, and he performed that very elaborate toe that we'd been really pushing for. I mean, wheel toes were fine, but he actually did. Oh no, we hadn't been pushing for it, the one we'd been afraid of. But he was like, I can do this. It's just, you know, it takes a minute. It's tricky. Watching him do it, it definitely takes a skilled person, a lot of patience, and, you know, positioning the slider under this wheel, and then this one, and cranking it up a little bit, and then doing it again, and re-angling it, and so it was a sweaty, hard job, and so we were very impressed and very grateful because he conceded that damage does happen. He wasn't so flippant as the person before, but he was like, I know how to make it very, very unlikely, and watching him, it definitely seemed to be the case. He was just taking great pains. He didn't seem happy about it, but he was taking great pains to make sure that the car wasn't damaged. He got Bubs up onto the flatbed. We'd asked for the wheel toe, but he actually felt more comfortable driving it that distance up on the flatbed. So we were like, if you can do that, that's great. And even more impressive, he navigated this semi. He did like a 3-point turn because he should have really backed. It was like, it wasn't a big rig, but it was a big flatbed. And he should have backed his way onto the gravel road, you know, at the end of which the couple's house was situated. But he didn't know, and neither did we. We didn't have eyes on the situation ahead of time, and we should have driven ahead. But he was going so fast. He was like running lights, and we were like, God damn it, like he keeps getting away from us. I think he just wanted to be fast about it. So it was really impressive watching him do a 3-point turn because their gate, like their driveway gate, was at the end of the street, and there was a very narrow tree-lined lane, like cypress trees lining a lane, like right off to the left, and he used that lane to do a very complicated, very hard 3-point turn. I was sweating looking at it. Did not damage their fence, their gate, their iron gate. Didn't take out a cypress tree, but like the treads, like the tire marks were like right up against the base of one of these trees, and the tires were like, you know, so it was impressive. Definitely could have taken out one of those trees. My bus driver when I was growing up, just going around the little roundabout at the end of the cul-de-sac, was the bane of the woman at the end of the street's existence, because she loved to plant. She loved to keep like a Christmas tree, like a Douglas or like a Noble, like some sort of Christmas tree planted in that little plot within like the roundabout. And she was so mad. She would plant flowers too. And the bus driver, driving a much smaller vehicle than this tow truck, with I think more road to maneuver really, would constantly take out those flowers and bend that tree. So she'd be so mad when she'd see like the tire marks in the mud that they'd like driven over the curb of this like island in the middle of this median island in the middle of the roundabout. I'm getting off topic. So we were very impressed, and meeting Ben and Anne, and you know, making small talk and thanking them profusely, and they were so nice. And they got the tow person, whose name I didn't know because it was just his first initial on his name tag, but he was amazing. Man, a few words again. But he like smiled when we were like, that was incredible, and you know, he happily accepted lots and lots of beverages. I think he left with like 3 in hand and a thing of ice. And yeah, the couple were so nice off the bat to us, to him, so hospitable. it was like a moment of relief. It felt like those beginning moments, or like happy moments within the series of unfortunate events, like moments of respite, like with Uncle Montgomery, like when you're like, oh, this is going pretty well. So we were like, this is a safe place. Like, it was like a gated private home. Beautiful, by the way. I don't have time to talk about like how beautiful their property was, what a lovely couple they are. We're still in touch with them for other reasons. We're actually doing some things for them coming up. We really wanted to help them out in a particular way. I don't know why I'm being secretive about it. We're gonna house sit for them, so that's a whole other element of the story. How nice this couple was. They like gave us homegrown tomatoes and cucumbers and grapes, and gave us like a tour, because we saw a lot of them in the coming weeks, because things with the car got worse, not better. But yeah, that was a major silver lining of the whole fiasco. And yeah, they also have an amazing dog who, sorry for the sirens, a really smart border collie, no, Australian Shepherd actually, sorry. And she's very slow to trust, and we ended up being there enough time on enough separate occasions and for long enough durations that she grew to trust and love us, which is a wonderful feeling just as a life experience, but a terrible indicator in terms of a swift resolution to the car drama, right? So let that be a sign. So things were looking up, and we got contact information for Ben and Anne, and we were going to make sure to keep them in the loop with this car, the battery replacement. Again, just repeating information to everyone, like getting them in the loop about the car situation, and that we weren't certain it was the battery, and our fear we leveled with them was that the battery could be replaced and there could be something else at play as well, in which case we weren't sure what we were going to do, but that, we were taking things one step at a time. And so I'm gonna skip forward, but so things were feeling good when we rode back to Los Angeles with my partner's father, and we were really grateful he had that connection, because it could not have been better. And it was also really interesting to see what it really takes to get a car up on a flatbed if it can't be put into neutral. And so skipping forward, we were starting to have some worries with the battery replacement company, because we confirmed an appointment with them. We told them the updated address, but it got lost in translation, even though at that point we'd flagged multiple times, including from the very first conversation, that our home address was not the pickup address. So they were like, oh, well, maybe it can't be Saturday, and we were like, fuck. And they were like, but it can be Sunday, we'll have a technician out in that area on Sunday, and we're like, fine. But then the technician separately is contacting us being like, I can do it Saturday. So I was starting to see what that reviewer meant when they said communication was tricky, because it's all run by like, I think 1 or 2 people with some technicians whom they contract, or maybe they're employees. But basically every time we called, we got the same person. I think it was their cell phone number. It really seems like they're running the entire thing. Really seems like they're running the entire operation, and they were very like dry and blunt and telling it like it is, and that's great. But it was like, I had called at one point to ask, like, is there any way to move the appointment up? We'll pay a lot extra, but we're really concerned. This was before we knew about Ben and Anne's place, but we were like, we really need, every day that it's out there, we're worried that the catalytic converter will be stolen, which we assumed he would understand as someone who works with hybrids. And he just like never got back to me after I left like a voicemail and an email, just the communication wasn't great and really started to feel very much like they didn't want our business. It's just hard as a customer, isn't it, when the demand is really great, maybe outnumbers supply, and you're just like completely at the mercy of you know, a small selection of providers of a particular service. So yeah, I was starting to feel like a cool kids club that I really wanted to be in. You know, like, please, 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 like us enough to bother to put in even like fractionally more effort, you know, into this interaction, because we were willing to pay. It just didn't matter. It's like, it really felt like they couldn't be bothered. But things weren't so bad. Ahead of the appointment, we could kind of get in touch with them. You know, we just basically had to wait for them to appear out of thin air and be like, okay, we're ready, see you tomorrow, and this is the information. Oh, not tomorrow. Oh, guess it can't happen this weekend. Maybe Sunday if you're lucky. And then, oh, like, no, it can be tomorrow, so we'll see you then. So we coordinated with the technician, Matt, and we coordinated with Anne, who was going to be home, and Ben was not. And Anne was kind of like present for everything that happened after this point, just always around, working from home, and super like social and a great host, you know. So she was always around. So she saw all of this kind of go down, but I don't want to go too much into it. But Matt gets there, runs diagnostics. Doesn't seem like he really knows what he's doing, like he has a ton of experience, because he basically is on the phone with, I think, his boss. I think the person I'd been speaking to all week. The entire time, just asking questions and being given a play-by-play of what to do and what to check. They run diagnostics, and it's not the battery. And he pointed out, he was like, well, if it were the battery, you wouldn't have been able, like, if the front battery is not responsive and the back battery's not, you wouldn't have been able to open the doors and things. And we were like, oh, interesting. Like, we didn't know if that's necessarily true, but we were like, oh, okay. And he said that the inverter pump was bad. He said a bunch of things needed to be fixed, but most pressingly, what was happening was the inverter pump was bad, and it was causing a fuse to blow. The front of the Prius has this little like fuse box, at least this generation does, and he's troubleshooting. He's like testing this theory with his boss on the phone, telling him what to do, and he's like, no, they've got some extra fuses, so I'll just test it and use one of their extras. And we're like, do we need those? And he's like, no, it just comes, like, you have some spares. He gets the car to turn on by replacing the fuse that had been blown, but within minutes, and it was like amazing to hear the car running at this point, but within minutes it blows again. Clearly what had happened on the highway, it just dies. So we were like, what do we like do if it's not the battery? That's not like your purview necessarily. He was like, we can fix it. And I was like, oh, are you like, you do? And he was like, yeah, we don't advertise as a company that does other repairs, but we all have, you know, Priuses, we all have hybrids, and so yeah, we can do that repair. And he was like, you know, I'll do it. He was like, we can do it for like $600 or $700, which is a lot less than what we thought. And we're definitely going to use this company when he does need his battery replaced, but great if in the short term we don't have to pay as much after all the money we've lost, gas money and food on the road all these days, and the passport, the lift, everything. So we're like, that's amazing, but this is coming up on July 4th. So we're like, well, it's Saturday now, like, you're not able to do it tomorrow. And he's like, no, and to be honest, I need to order the parts. So we like to use Toyota. You have to get the parts from Toyota, and they're not open on Monday because it's the 4th of July. And we're like, oh, right. And he was like, I could come out on Tuesday though. And we're like, okay, that's fine. And he's like, I don't work Tuesday. I don't work Tuesday, but I can come out for you all. He was just so like unemotional. Like I've been trying to like be social with him. I think he was tired and annoyed. So he was like talking about our situation to his boss loudly on the phone, but kind of ignoring us up till a certain point. But we kind of seemed like we gotten him to like warm up a little bit just by like trying to like talk to him, ask him questions, offer him drinks. You know, Anne was part of this social effort as well. She's amazing. She like practically adopted us for a few weeks. So yeah, he's very difficult to read and just not giving us a lot. Like he'll say things, but he just seems so begrudging. You're like, well, why are you offering this? Because we're not like cajoling him. He's telling us this stuff. So we're like, does he like feel bad for us? Is he getting a deal? Like, is he doing this off the clock and he gets to just pocket the money? Like, what's going on? But he was like, yeah, I can come Tuesday. We're like, that's great. And you don't have to do that though. Like, we can wait until Wednesday with Anne's blessing. But you know, sooner is obviously like much better for us because it's been a few weeks. It's been like 2 weeks at this point of this entire situation, more than that I think, since like the beginning of the passport drama. And he's like, yeah, no, I can do it. And I'm like, well, do I arrange with so and so at, you know, the company, the person who always picks up the phone, or can I arrange with you directly? And he was like, you can arrange with me directly. So I really felt like he just, you know, like he was just gonna take care of this for us. And we were like believing everything he said and, you know, asking whatever questions we could. And he was like, it's just gonna be a $350 fee today. It's a diagnostic fee. You know, obviously he had to charge something for having traveled out there, even though he was servicing that area anyway that day. Like, there is a range. You know, it's not all happening in the same county, all the repairs. So even if you're servicing a general area, you still have to pay for gas money and travel time and stuff. So he's like, yeah, that's part of it, but it's mostly a diagnostic fee, and it gets rolled into, like, applied toward your next appointment, like the repair. Like, you won't have to pay for like a visit fee for that one. So we were like, okay, like that makes sense. And like, yeah, we needed the diagnosis. He does not give us the codes. We've just like heard him talking about all the things that are coming up on his reader to the person through the phone. And he's just told us, you know, what we need repaired once, and then said that he can do it, and doesn't really want to get into the particulars of this. Like, he's not really explaining anything to us. He's just like, I can fix this. I'll fix it for you on Tuesday. So we're feeling great. So we're feeling disappointed that that day wasn't the day. We weren't driving home with Bubs, because every time we do this, we're both going out there so that someone can drive one car back, someone can drive the other. So it was really like eating away at our time and energy. So skipping forward, we're in constant communication with Anne, which is lovely, but also, you know, like, we just haven't been able to live our normal lives. We're just constantly engaging with this issue on one level or another, in some way or another. So even just like being a good communicator with Anne, because we're like potentially inconveniencing them, leaving our car in their driveway all this time, and now it's been extended several days. So we're feeling bad, and we're wanting to like be in touch with them. So we're not sure whether to text Matt on the Sunday before the 4th of July or on the 4th of July. Like, neither feels great, and we didn't really think about that, but literally those were the next 2 days. So I text him like early on 4th of July, on the 4th of July on Monday. And I say, hey, like Matt, don't want to bother you on too much on a holiday, but just checking that you're still able to come tomorrow in the morning. So we can arrange our work schedules around it, and we're both going to be there, so we can arrange with the homeowners, because we don't live there. We had to keep repeating this to people, and they'd be like, oh, just do this, that, or the other, and be like, it's way more complicated than that. We don't live there, and with traffic, you know, we need to, if you're going to give us a window, and you want us to be there and not waste your time and be there on time, like, we need a heads up. We need to coordinate with the homeowners, and we need to, like, be able to get there. So, in time. So all these people that like wanted to be super casual about it, we kept having to be like, dude, that's not how this works. Like, that's why this is so shitty and why we're having you drive out to Oceanside and there's this random couple here. Like, anyway, so yeah, I say, like, I understand if you like don't want to come out and do this on your day off. Just let us know, like, if Wednesday will work better. Thank you so much. No response until Tuesday. So I text Anne and I'm like, we haven't heard from him. Keeping her updated, but I'll text you as soon as we do. It could be today, but it doesn't feel like it. All day Tuesday, nothing until like the afternoon, and he's like, oh, sorry, like, I thought I'd be back in town. Maybe it was earlier to be there on Tuesday, but it's Tuesday. Either way, it's Tuesday morning, and we finally get a response back about Tuesday morning. And he's like, yeah, I thought that I would be back in town. I was sure I'd be back in town, because I'd been like, are you sure Tuesday? And at the time he'd been like, yeah. I was like, oh, my bad, I thought I'd be back in town, but I'm not. Can you do Thursday? What happened to Wednesday, right? And I was like, I think my partner worked on Thursday, and I was like, no, but we could still do tomorrow or Friday. I don't get a text back until the next day saying, sorry, if it's not, if it can't be Thursday, then let's say Saturday. So just the rate at which he was responding made it impossible. But I just, like, I didn't want to fuck around with it anymore, and I was like, fine, Saturday, but, like, can we lock that in, and can you accept payment remotely, like, if you keep changing the day, and, like, we might not be able to be there, but Anne will be there, she'll let you in, she's aware of the whole situation, but can you accept our credit card payment remotely? And so at that point, my partner's like, you can't give him any reason, he's such a horrible communicator, just say yes. I'm like, yeah, but that's moot if then we're just giving him a reason to fuck us over down the line if he can't agree to the actual situation, right? He's just so full of excuses. So we just need clarity. So I said yes. I just was like, can you, like, yes, Saturday, but can you do this, that, the other? At some point he texts, I'm getting this all mixed up, but it's just so annoying to wait and have to, like, send multiple texts, and it's like 24 hours to get a response from him, and each time suddenly the options, like, you can agree to something, be like, sure, oh yeah, so at some point I was like, for Wednesday I was like, sure, we can do Thursday, that's right, we can do Thursday, can you accept our credit card payment remotely because we're working Thursday, right? And he was like, well, if it can't be Thursday, even though I said it can be Thursday, he was like, if it can't be Thursday, and again, this text came much later, if it can't be Thursday, I guess it'll have to be Saturday. And he throws into that text, and if you can order this part and that part and the other, and a little bit of coolant, that would be sweet. He's not ordered the parts. It's like Wednesday at this point. He said he was gonna have them in hand when he came on Tuesday morning. And he's not even bothered to let us know at any point that they're not even, the order isn't even in. And at that point it just felt so difficult communicating with this person, and we were being like led on and fucked with. I got in touch with the main person, leaving a message, no response. And at one point he calls me, I pick up, and he hangs up. I think he was just trying to get it like logged on my phone that he'd called and missed me, but I picked up right away and he hung up. And so I text and I'm like, hey, so-and-so, let's call him Jack, the person who like runs this company. So, and I had said in my voicemail, I was like, we're having a lot of trouble coordinating with your technician, Matt. Like, there's confusion on both sides, I think. Please help us facilitate, because we're like really struggling without our car, and we really want to make this repair happen, and we're happy to work with you all, but like, can you facilitate at this point? Like, get your guy, come get your guy. But Jack is just as shifty as Matt, if not worse. So he's like dodging my calls, and like it feels like they don't make as much money off things that aren't the batteries, which is so silly because we were totally gonna like bring them that business within the year, most likely. Like, if they had treated us well, we were excited to keep doing business with them, to be return customers. And they were just so like, my partner said it best, he was like, they just are treating us like bothersome idiots at every turn. And like being ghosted, like professionally ghosted, is what was essentially happening. And when I like called Jack at like a random time of day, he like picked up in like what seemed like a perfunctory way, and then his tone shifted when he realized it was me. And I just tried to be super calm and sweet and use my ASMR voice to maybe, like, in case he experiences that, like, lull him into, like, staying on the line and be like, we're just really struggling to make this appointment, and we were told that the fee we paid would be rolled into that appointment, but it's becoming logistically impossible to schedule it, and we never even got diagnostic codes, so we can't, like, go elsewhere without incurring, like, redundant fees. So I'm just like confused. We don't know what to do. And he was like, well, we really don't do repairs other than the batteries. And I was like, well, your technician said that you do, you just don't advertise that you do. And he's like, oh yeah, well, we do those, we just don't advertise. Like, his story kept changing, and it was just like, it was surreal. It was so weird dealing with these people. So we ended up having to get really litigious with them, and I had to like threaten to contact the DCA bar, the DCA-BAR, however you would say that if you like actually know anything about the industry, which I don't, but I can like apprise myself pretty quickly in terms of where to throw your weight. And I was like, I sent some emails basically asking for a refund and got it. So that was great, but that was a whole back and forth, a lot of energy and a false lead, and we had to like apologize to Ben and Anne because they'd been waiting on this repair. They were also mad at Matt. They were sweet about it. They were totally on our side, and they're like, what an asshole. What an asshole. And I was like surprised because they're very like Christian, and so when she said that, I was like, you get it. Yes, you get it. She was like, yeah, Matt seemed promising. That's so disappointing. What an asshole he ended up being. And that's exactly what happened. Anne said it best. At every step of the way, having to like push back and forth before I asked for the refund. I'd really just wanted the diagnostic codes at least, because I knew there was more wrong with the car than just what Matt recapitulated, because I'd heard the phone call and I remembered it was this, that, and the other, So we like didn't even have the information, and neither Jack nor Matt would repeat it to us, but they didn't want our business either. So they were like keeping us on the hook, but acting like super annoyed by us. Like, also at any point could have just said, you don't get the diagnostic codes, you just get like the diagnosis verbally communicated, whatever. Fuck off. They wouldn't even take time to do that. They were like ghosting us. It was so weird to like call and email and have them like call and hang up, and just so bizarre and so discouraging. So the next few days were really rough because we felt like we were back to square one. We were like, how do we get this car either working or back to Los Angeles? And at this point I leveled with my partner and I was like, I think we just need to get Bubs home. And he was like, we can't afford that. And I was like, if there are multiple things wrong with Bubs, if we go to a shop and we pay to tow it to a shop, because now he was like, we've got to just find a shop in the area. And I was like, we've called at least one of them and they didn't have any idea what they were talking about. And the closest electric car shop was a ways away, and we'd have to pay for that tow. It wouldn't be within AAA. And then you don't even know, like, what if, because there are other things wrong, or the battery issue, like what if the battery then dies? Like, at least if we bring Bubs home, there's a cost up front to doing that tow. We pay it, and he's in town with your guy, with Larry, you know, with his friend from the coffee shop who would give him the family rate. Because at this point we've been in communication with Larry, and we know that Larry would do the whole thing for like $500 flat. But what does it matter if there's a really good rate if it's so expensive to get the car to Larry? So we're back in a mode of just researching, calling, comparing, all while fighting, making our case and pushing for our refund with that other company, the battery company, and being in communication with the couple, Ben and Anne. It's exhausting, and we're starting to investigate. I'm like, I really do think that at least if we tow it back to Los Angeles, if it breaks down again or the battery does die, it's here and we can affordably tow it. You know, most places we go in town, like, they are within 7 miles of this shop. So at least that part of it's over. And I was like, we can't keep doing this. We're just digging a deeper and deeper hole, and we need to cut our losses. And my partner is really not keen on the idea, understandably so, but we set about doing our research about car shipping, you know, long haul, long distance car transports. And this is a whole thing I'm gonna skip, but just having our phones inundated with text messages and emails and phone calls. Like, once you enroll, once you say you're interested in getting quotes, you're just bombarded. So we're constantly getting messages. Hey Remy, you see that you need a tow. I can offer from Oceanside or from the suburb that where Ben and Anne live to Los Angeles for $220. Well, I can do it for $470. Well, I can do it for $175, because they all make it sound like they're giving you the best deal in the world. But in reality, you aren't ever saving more than 10% with one versus the other. Like, it has to come out of something. It has to come out somewhere. So it's just an illusion of choice, right? Because let's say you spend $400 and it's door to door, meaning they pick it up wherever it's parked. You know, they're willing to access it and pick it up at your home or wherever, even if it's not a commercial street, and navigate that terrain, and then they'll drop it off wherever you like. And there's liability coverage, no hidden fees, whatever. But it's a bit of sticker shock, it's more expensive. But then a company's offering it for $175, and there are all these little caveats that, oh, if the driver has to do this, it's an added fee. If the driver has to do that, it's an added fee. If you are late for your pickup window, which they will not confirm with you ahead of time, even though you keep explaining to them that you don't live in the area, you can't be at their beck and call, or you're willing to be, but you need at least a few hours notice to even manage to get there in time with traffic. So they're just setting you up to fail, setting you up to charge you extra. All these hidden fees for that lower rate. So I imagine that what it all comes down to, all the different variations across the spectrum, all the different packages. It costs what it costs to tow your car that distance. Lots of back and forths, lots of like spending a lot of time and energy communicating with companies only to come to the conclusion that they feel scammy or they won't work with us. They're just trying to get us to sign a contract so they can get their broker's fee, but they don't actually care if it's a good fit for us and for our needs, because again, we need a particular kind of tow. So like I clicked when I submitted for the quotes that the car was non-operable. I toggled that for sure. And all the quotes I got for the most part were for an operable car. And then in the fine print that they could charge an extra fee if the car is non-operable. So I was like, did you do that on purpose? Like, is that the way they do it? They just pretend they didn't see that part, give you a quote, and you think you've been quoted at a rate consistent with your situation. You know, you've said it's non-operable, so clearly the quote you're getting is for a non-operable vehicle. Yeah, things like that feel really shitty. And so my partner, little did I know, had also submitted for quotes and was getting blown up, you know, getting his phone blown up with offers, just like people like shouting virtually at you for weeks once you've given in and gone this route. So yeah, he ended up feeling good about Yellowfin and spoke to a nice person named Jeff at Yellowfin, and he answered all our questions. It seemed like such a great setup and no hidden fees. It was going to be $245 door to door, and he understood that it was non-operable. He was like, I think that the driver may charge you a little more if it can't be put into neutral, which, you know, we know that that's a lot of extra work. We'd seen it in action and we were like, that's fine as long as they know and they come prepared. If they charge us a little extra to do that, that's fine, but they need to be able to do it safely, right? We're not going to accept if someone's just like, oh, it's fine, like, you might damage your transmission, but whatever. Like, we'd had it happen so many times in the last few weeks that people either bailed on us when they found out that we were serious about having the tow done a certain way, or they tried to like shame us into just giving in and letting them do it the easier way, or tried to charge us a lot more. But even that didn't happen as much as the first two scenarios. Like, we were being babies about it, and I'm like, God, people just act like, you know, people are really good at spending your money for you, especially if they're like, yeah, it's a racket industry, you know, like, that's the way it is. Like, so much of the car industry, so much of the school industry, so much of the wedding industry, so much of the medical industry, like, there's just this idea like, yeah, it's gonna be exorbitant, grow up and deal with it like everyone else. So my partner was like, okay, as long as there's good communication, which it really seemed like there was. Greg took extensive notes, and, you know, we signed a contract, we looked very closely through it, asked all the questions like, well, what if that happens? Like, are we gonna be stuck with that fee? Are we definitely gonna be given enough heads up to get to this suburb of Oceanside? Otherwise, it's all moot. Like, if you get to just have the driver come out and be like, they weren't here, even though we gave them only like 20 minutes warning, you know, I'm rolling through, like, I'm nearby, now's a good time for me. Oh, they're not here, so I get to charge them like a no-show fee. We worked all that out with Jeff and felt good about it, and we were like, today's the day. Checking ahead with Larry. Larry knew we were gonna come. We cleared with him that even if the tow ran really late, because we were ready for that, we were emotionally prepared for this to be a mess, And he was like, yeah, you can drop it off at any time after hours. So nice. We felt like we thought of everything, and then we went and we got Anne and Ben a nice candle and wrote them a card and just a thank you, because we were like, this is it. Like, we're on our way. We're gonna say our goodbyes after seeing them, on two separate, really, well, one of them was a really long day, but on two separate days, and lots of communication in between. We're going to get to go our separate ways, but obviously having made lifelong friends with whom we would stay in contact, but not to the extent that, like, I've texted Anne more than I've texted any member of my family in the last 3 years total. Just so much coordinating, so much back and forth. That might be an exaggeration. I text my sister more than that, but everyone else in my family, collectively, way less than Anne. So we were going up, we were feeling good, we got our pickup window. We'd actually been in touch with the driver the night before, everything was looking good, and he was like, I'm gonna be there around noon. So we go, my partner has done research to get the car into neutral on his own. He's picked up the parts from auto stores, he's watched videos, he's bought work gloves, he's wearing rubber sole shoes, even though the shock risk is relatively low if you use these little like pincers and that come with the spare fuses kit, and so like a little tester too to make sure there's no electrical signal, like he's ready to go. And he's even been told by a lovely AutoZone worker that a child could do it. Love all the condescension we've gotten in the last few weeks. Honestly, also, like, just having been in contact with literally dozens of car professionals in the course of a few weeks, the stuff of nightmares, because obviously some of them are going to be like in any industry, but there's a lot more of like a masculine mansplaining energy, right, in this industry, and I definitely encountered at least one really, really prejudiced person who like clearly had it out for me. So yeah, some of the nicest people I've ever dealt with, and some of the most frustrating and some of the most condescending. So yeah, it's been a lot. So the day comes, and I'm gonna keep it short, but just another day from hell. So nice being with Anne and being with their dog, and she took such good care of us. But I thought, like, I gave my students' parents a warning that I might not be home until 5 or 6. We were given a guaranteed drop-off of 2:45, and my partner and I had a contingency plan that I would go without him if need be, because, like, we were nervous splitting up, but he'd be with Anne, and in theory, no matter what, the car is getting towed. And he was like, he checked with the driver that he could ride with the driver back to Los Angeles. So yeah, a contingency plan in case we ran really late, even with the guaranteed drop-off. What does guaranteed even mean when it comes to cars and towing? So we had a plan so I could get back for tutoring, even with traffic. The plan did not account for if the tow never came, which it didn't. Similar situation as with Matt. At noon, we're there bang on time, and we called to check in. Haven't heard from him all morning, but we're assuming we're still on track because he confirmed with us the night before. And we call him, and he's like, oh, well, it's actually looking more like 2. And we're like, that's fine, but you can definitely do it. Yes, I'll be there at 2. No mention of equipment issues. In the meantime, we're trying to get the car into neutral, trying to start the car after my partner's replaced the fuse. It's not working. We try to jump it from Anne's old car, like a really nice old car, and it doesn't work. We use a battery charger, and at that point the car Bubs starts rumbling and making clickety-clackety noises like hybrids do. Like, he seems like he's back online. He's at least thinking about starting. Like, there are signs of life. So we're encouraged, but all day while the situation is happening with the tow truck, we're trying everything we can think of and failing to get Bubs started so he can be put into neutral. But that's fine because this tower said that, you know, like, he can still do the tow. He's just going to charge us extra if the car can't be put into neutral. After the 2 o'clock ETA, we check in, and then it's 3, and then it's 4, and we're like at his mercy again, where we're like, hey man, like, we really would have appreciated an accurate ETA. And he's like, oh, do you not want me to come? And we're like, no, like, we need you to come. Like, it has to be today, for the love of God. Like, it has to be today. So yeah, just please come. We're getting really nervous, and things are feeling bad. And I'm like, I'm not gonna make it back. This is at like 2 something that we're told he'll be there at 4. And I'm starting to realize I might not make it back in time for tutoring. I'm texting with the parents, trying to like move things around. And then we call the driver again, and we're like, hey, we're just getting like a little nervous. And he's like, well, I can probably be there by 5 if I go home and I change out my equipment by 3:50 and get like the trailer hitched up or something. I don't know. I don't even understand. And we were like, if, like, are you going to? And he was like, yeah, I don't think I really have the right equipment. This is the first we're hearing of it. I don't think I have the right equipment, but I can get it up. I can get it onto a bed if you have someone in Los Angeles who can meet us there and pull it off with a pickup truck. First of all, that's not door to door. Second of all, that doesn't feel safe. That's just not what we agreed on. Third of all, telling us now that we need to coordinate this difficult 11th hour logistic, we're just like really thrown off. But we're like, oh, we'll work on that, but please still come. You're still gonna come, right? At some point I turned to Anne behind my partner's back, and I'm like, I don't think he's coming. And I tell my partner it's time to call Yellowfin, and he's like, well, like, why? And I'm like, love of my life, I need to tell you, this man isn't coming. He calls Yellowfin several times. They're not answering. Then I call from a number they'd never seen before, and lo and behold, they pick up. And when I explain the situation, they know exactly who I am and which car it's concerning. And they're like, well, the trucker says you all canceled, so you're in breach of contract. And at that point, I'm like, that is not true. Like, Anne is seeing me, like, lose it a little bit, like, start raising my voice. I'm like, we did not cancel. Like, we were gonna do whatever we could to make it work today. Like, we were willing to try to finagle this weird situation with the truck that doesn't even seem safe. Like, are you aware that he was asking us to do that? The fact that he was being so he was making such weird big asks and just being in general so unprofessional, but then told the company that we canceled because he didn't want to bother with us and didn't tell us, and just try to get out of it that way so that we'd be on the hook for associated fees. We were just like, we were like, how are we gonna get this car back to Los Angeles? We started calling every tow company at that point, like every towing company in the area, just asking what their rates were, and they were all awful. One person offered my partner he would do it for $700 in cash, and my partner was really considering it, and I was like, that's a lot. That's like triple what we were gonna pay, and there's no liability coverage. Like, you have no contract. they might be just as stubborn about, like, they say they can do this kind of tow, but everyone keeps saying they can and then bailing on us when it actually comes to it, or like saying they need more money, right? And yeah, I forget all the reasons, but I was like, that, like, I know this sucks, but I don't think that's a good idea, and it can't be today anyway. I like had to tutor from this couple's house. It was such a mess. I had to tutor for like 2.5 hours from Anne's bedroom office. They like fed us dinner. They're so lovely, and also like we needed to get back to our lives. Like my partner was watching like the Tour de France with Ben, and it was just like, it was so nice, but so, our lives had been so disrupted. We'd made so many trips back and forth at this point. It had been almost a month, and we were just like, we just didn't know what we were going to do. We were no closer. We had more information that we were trying to put together. We couldn't even figure out why we couldn't get this car started when Matt had. We found out later that when he'd said we had spare fuses, he'd probably taken some from places that we did in fact need them, and then the circuitry of the car didn't work anymore. Like a similar size fuse, like he plugged in just to, I guess, I don't know, because in theory wouldn't the car have started for us? Oh no, not if it blew it, and then my partner replaced it with a different one but didn't. I don't know. It seemed like he fucked with something, and he didn't really seem super knowledgeable. He was kind of like futzing around, you know, just being told everything to do on the phone. So we have theories about that, but again, we're not like, we don't know enough to know. We like, it's all been a crash course and we're doing our best, but a lot of it's just like constant theorizing, and having Larry on the phone walking us through things. He was so nice, and we started leaning very heavily on him just when we had no fucks left to give, and we knew that we were trying to get the car back to him. We started like really leaning on him, and he was endlessly helpful, but there's only so much he could do over the phone. And on top of that, I was like, well, we still have this contract with Yellowfin. Like, Jeff was so nice, and we got someone else because it was after East Coast hours, you know, when we finally realized that the truck, you know, the tow person wasn't coming, and it fucked with our entire days. And I was like, my tutoring sessions were terrible. I was so ill prepared, and on like a person I just met 2 weeks ago on their computer, on their Wi-Fi in their office, just like Googling like philosophy lessons I could put together on the fly. And yeah, I mean, it was still fun, but we were just so tired. And again, square one. So my partner was really at that point when he just wanted it to be over, and I was like, $700, and like, clearly there are other things wrong with the car than just the $500 for this very specific repair that we like repeated from what we knew from Matt's text messages of like the parts he wanted me to order for him. But we remembered other diagnostic codes had come up. So I'm like, you have no idea how much you're gonna have to put into this car in the coming months, and the battery still could go. And oh, and that's the other thing, we needed to get a new catalytic converter plate. I forgot to say when we looked under the car. I was like, has it always like sagged like that? So we were told later that it looked like someone had tried to get the catalytic converter and had used a crowbar and not been successful, but had tried, and it damaged the catalytic converter plate. So that was going to need to be put back on to be like flush, so that, you know, someone wasn't most of the way through the job of breaking in and getting to it, you know, like someone didn't have like a head start. He needed a new shield. So all these costs, and the fact that we'd like inconvenienced Anne and Ben so much, even though they'd never say it and they were being so nice. And our brains just completely full. Like, I really can't emphasize enough that I'm like, the extent to which I'm abridging conversations, leaving out conversations, like a whole back and forth that was shitty with a different car shipping company that didn't work out. I called AAA a bunch of times to try to figure out if I could upgrade my membership and get that premium tow back to Los Angeles, and of course, like, that's not how insurance works. They don't want you to like have a tow in mind when you set it up. But just like seeing what was possible, because because of our budgetary issues, and learning through calling my father about like transferring my membership to California, which I would have had to do first because I think the membership I have is based in his state because they're bundled. So yeah, moving that over, and the upgrade process, and then the mandatory waiting process. So doing my own research, talking to him, getting on the phone with a representative from the East Coast, getting transferred and talking to a representative on the West Coast, being walked through all of it, and after all that, realizing that we weren't eligible. It was all moot. It would in theory have worked great, but we'd have to wait like 3 months with all the different waiting periods from transfer to upgrade. And since last tow, they also have a clause that's like you can't even do any of this if it's been within like 2 weeks or something of your last tow. It could be longer than that, could be several months. So yeah, that research and all these quotes and the back and forth with the battery company, just we didn't feel like ourselves anymore. I like missed my partner, and he said he missed me too, because we were just all hands on deck. We were just not like connecting. I mean, we were plenty, but not like we normally do, and we were just both of us are neurodivergent in ways that can involve hyperfixation. So we both, I most of all, but we both were very fixated for weeks on this issue, or actively avoiding it, and just being in that emotional cycle of just like exhaustion and avoidance and numbness and anxiety, and researching and worrying and like bickering and trying to like be like, should we do this, should we do that, should we do this, should we do that, listen, I think we should do this, no, you don't understand, we can't do that. Yeah, we weren't doing well. So while we're still waiting for Yellowfin to get back in touch with us, we've relayed everything. We've refuted the tower's claims that we had bailed. But in the next few days, Anne gets in touch and says that she's found someone who can do the tow for $500. And we're like, that's a lot of money. Actually, my partner was on set, so I was getting all this information first. And she was like, yeah, he seems really knowledgeable, a really nice guy. I asked if he would come out and look at the car, and he said he can do that today, but like he wants to do the tow today at noon. I did not like the idea. I was so cynical at that point, and so used to people not fully understanding what we were worried about with the tow, or not understanding how stressed we were financially and the kind of value we were trying to, with which we were comfortable, like how much money for how much service, or what kind of service. And we still in theory had this contract with Yellowfin on which we'd put this deposit, and we were hoping that once Jeff got back to us, maybe it had all been a misunderstanding. So I didn't want to offend Anne or come off as ungrateful or shoot down her ideas, or like talk to a much older person, like a retirement age person. Like, like I knew better than they did. Especially because she knew a lot when she was like helping us jump the car, you know, or trying to. But yeah, we'd just been burned so many times at this point, and we're feeling like a need to have a lot of control. It's really hard to let go because we'd lost so much money at this point. So I just bought time by being like, oh, my partner, you know, he's on set. He's not seeing this right now. It sounds great, but I really can't make any decisions for his car. So it's probably not going to be today, because if he wants it to be noon today, like, I don't think that's going to line up. She was like, he says that's okay. He understands. Hopefully tomorrow. And I was again wary because, like, cash, no contract. And I was like, this buys me time to keep trying to sort things out with Yellowfin, which I was leaning towards. But then I started getting texts from Anne that were like, well, he came, he was a super nice fellow, so knowledgeable. I tipped him a little today, and I really think it's a good option. He, you know, like she said before he visited, she was like, he thinks, he was explaining that there's like a way to, like an emergency switch or some sort of switch to let you put hybrids, especially this make and model, into neutral without having the car started. And this was literally the first we were hearing of this, and we talked to a bunch of car people and also hybrid people, and then I get a text from her that's like, oh, so he came, he went, he opened the back of the car. We were never able to get the hatch open to even access the battery after Matt. That's what he did. He took one of the fuses for that. So we weren't able to open the car, and we didn't know why. We could open the doors, but not the back to access all the stuff in the back of the car. So she was like, yeah, he got his tools out, he opened the back of the car, and then the fuse thing he didn't figure out, to be fair. My partner did later, because the stereo wasn't working on his car, so he figured that part out and fixed the fuses so that all the electronics of the car were back online. So big kudos to him. But yeah, so Anna's like texting me these things, and I'm watching like flabbergasted as the developments roll in, and she's like, yeah, Peter, his name is Peter, and he got into Bubs. He like got Bubs into neutral. He actually got Bubs started and said he can get Bubs started again tomorrow. So we were like, so I was like, he got Bubs started. We had spent the whole day that Wednesday trying to do that and not being able to. So I need to wrap it up, but it all seemed too good to be true. But we were like, okay, let's just do this. If it means that Bubs could be home tomorrow and in the shop and with Larry, you know, and someone we know and trust, not a bunch of hidden fees, hidden costs. Let's just go for it. And Anne was like, you know what? You don't even need to come out here. It's early in the morning. You've made enough trips. I'll take lots of pictures before, because we were having major trust issues. I wanted to like follow whoever towed the car, like from Oceanside back to Los Angeles, just to watch the whole thing after what we'd been through. But she was like, I really think you can trust Peter. I trust Peter, and I can pay him too. You can save money on gas and I'll come out here, and you know, if you house sit for me, we can like put the cost of the tow toward that if you can house sit for a week, because our dog loves you, and she said we were delightful people, and so we'd earned her trust and her dog's, and it was the least we could do. And we were like, absolutely. Like, it's a lot to take a week off from our normal work and our normal lives, my partner especially, because I can still tutor remotely wherever I am, and I've tutored there before, but he was really going to take work off from like being on set. But he was just really wanting, they were going to pay him, but even if it wasn't like quite enough in terms of like the fact that 500 of it got taken right off the top for this toe on the front end, and you know, like, that just means that he's just making very little, whatever remains for the week. He's not making any money towards his rent. And like I said, people can be good at spending your money for you if the dollar in the situation doesn't have the same value to them as it does to you. You know, a dollar is different for everyone. That's something my parents would say, like, a dollar means something different or is worth something different to everyone. So yeah, I was like, ooh, $500, but yes, let's do it. And my partner, again, definitely wanted to say yes, didn't want to say no to anything that Anne and Ben were asking at that point, especially if, like, they're gonna pay him anything at all. So it all worked out nicely, so it all made sense. And I told my partner, and he was getting excited when I showed him the texts about Peter and everything that had happened, and he was on board. So I gave the go-ahead to Anne to schedule with Peter, and I was like, I got to say to her, like, I trust you. And I think that was a nice, like, we needed to let go at that point and trust Anne, who had been there for us the entire time, and trust her judgment, her perspicacity, you know, where she was in the situation from her vantage point and with her life experience, and her, you know, being a good judge of people, even though we'd all been hoodwinked, we'd all been tricked to some extent by Matt, at least. So, like, we were all there for that. So to summarize, the next morning we got to, like, sleep in, get in touch with Peter, who was bang on time, ask him what his favorite Starbucks drink was, and go and pick that up for him and meet him at the shop. Larry was there. It was like the end of Wizard of Oz. It's like all happy faces, or, like, you know, familiar faces you're happy to see after a really weird, uncanny, long experience outside your comfort zone in a strange situation in a strange land. So yeah, and Peter rolls up, and he's incredible. And he's just, like, flabbergasted. He's like, no one told you that, huh? And this, that, and the other, and you know this, and here, I'll show you, let me show you this. You can actually access it through the side if you do this, and oh, I just did this, it was simple, and no one told you that. I'm like, do you know a lot about hybrids? He's like, just cars in general. Yeah, you know, I know a bit. He was just like, thank God for Peter, like, the real heroes of the story, like Larry, who took it from there, gave us great family rates. It's still been hard, but took really good care of us and threw in some things for free. And Peter, again, total rock star, and Anne and Ben, amazing. And, you know, obviously we got help from a lot of other people along the way, and my partner's father, and yeah, there's a lot to be upset about. After all this, we found out that my partner did not book the job, and he thought it was because he bungled, he screwed up the callback because of his nervous, his frantic energy coming out of that terrible lift. But it turns out that after all that, the casting company had stuck with him being their top recommendation, but the client, after all that, decided to save money and go with a local hire in the UK. So yeah, and then during the course of all of this, obviously the Roe v. Wade, the overturn of Roe v. Wade happened. Some family stuff has been happening, and I found out that my computer is dying, and I basically have to get a new one because the repair is like $602 with tax for like a 3-year-old computer. Like, this is like the first computer I bought after college, after my college computer, and it just has not lived very long at all. And yeah, it's just like I got advice from a really nice computer repair person who's like, if it were me, like, yeah, I would just, at that point, you're more than half the cost of a new laptop instead of putting more money into an older computer. So it's like, yeah, I'm gonna have to at some point get ready to pay a lot of money on top of everything we're going through. I'm gonna save that all the processing of the fact that we thought that this commercial would happen and we'd recoup, like, you know, get back some of what we'd lost, and it would have felt worth it. I'm gonna process all of that later and just wrap this story up. But in spite of all the grief and exhaustion and feeling fucked over by a lot of people, like, then I had to litigate with Yellowfin on top of that, because we can't just shrug off $50. I know that's silly to put time and energy and hours into, like, taking screenshots and sending them the whole. Jeff was not so nice once he'd had our money. That's a whole other thing. But yeah, $50, like, that's like a nice meal for us, or like a week or more of groceries. So can't just shrug that off. And we were annoying a lot of people on the way. I'm sure, like Anne and Ben, even at times when we were like squabbling over like a difference of $245 versus $500. But that's where we are right now. And I know a lot of you can probably relate to that, and even not relate to some of the ease, some of the privilege, some of the luck we've had at various points in our experience. There are ways we're lucky, and we do count ourselves lucky. Like, first of all, our agents, like, it did show her what we're made of. I feel like the way we've been talking about it to each other is, we played a good game. You know, we lost, but we played a good game. And as people are like, oh, so you don't have any regrets at least. I'm like, well, regrets. Having regrets might be better than not making rent. But yes, it is nice. We made rent, it was fine, and it is nice at the end of the day to know we gave it our all, and we had a bad bit of luck, hit a rough patch, and then there were also some really kind, wonderful people along the way. I could do a whole video just on Ben and Anne. I could do a whole video just in reverence, just like Anne was like at one point, like, it doesn't hurt that Peter is good looking too. And my partner joked, because I was like, I don't know how to let Anne know, like, clearly I'm set, right? Like, she knows we're together, right? I was like, yeah, I'm sorry to disappoint Anne that neither of us is, that we're not gonna run off with Peter. And my partner was like, I might, like, it was just, we were in awe of Peter, just totally in reverence. I still need to write a review of Peter. I can't forget. Yeah, he was star of the show, and we'd really lost all faith in, I mean, it's not in car people, obviously, because the entire time we were trying to get the car back to Larry, who is such a good egg, such a kind person working in that industry, in that field. Yeah, not to be hyperbolic, but I like could hardly believe my eyes when I saw Bubs pulling up to this car shop in Los Angeles. Our boy came home. It sounds hyperbolic, but it really started to feel like that was just our life now. like, I was losing my sense. This is so dramatic because it was a month. This is in no way the worst thing either of us has ever been through, but it was certainly like the most infuriatingly, like needlessly hard and tedious and rude, and way too many interactions with way too many humans, and just not being treated super well. Just a lot of stimulation, a lot of exposure to a lot of different experiences, information, interactions. Next time around, it won't be nearly as hard, right? Knock on wood. I mean, you can always stumble into a really shitty moment in your life, and then that's just what things are going to be like. We're lucky that it was only a month. I mean, it's not over. I'm still having my own tech issues, and we're still in a really volatile place. Just a precarious place financially, but the worst, it feels, I'm gonna keep knocking, is over for now. And we just have to enjoy an easier season while we're in it, because things can get really shitty again really soon, and who knows, like maybe next time it won't be a month, it could be years, you know? Life is hard. Life is good, and life is really fucking hard. Both those things can definitely be true. But we're just finally able to like focus on anything else again. It's not trauma, you know, again, it's hyperbolic to put it in those terms, but like when someone's having car trouble on a show, we like can't deal with that. Don't even want to. We're like, oh god, oh god, oh god. It's just more than we can handle. My partner for a while was scared to listen to the song Running Up That Hill. Have you heard of it? Maybe you have. Yeah, he was superstitious because he was blasting that song when his car died. So I had to like have a moment as a person with OCD who can really easily absorb, latch onto superstitious thinking. It was playing on the radio, as it does quite often these days, happily. And I was just like vibing with it, as one does, and I was like, oh, I should change it because it's bad luck. And I was like, no, like I can't. After everything we've lost, we can't lose Kate Bush too. So I had to like force myself to play it through and enjoy it and sing along. And I sent my partner a video of me like tapping my feet to it, you know, like I had my phone in my lap at a stoplight and I was like tapping my feet, and I just sent it to him to be like, look, if I make it to you, because I was picking him up at the time, a month of car sharing also is tricky, but we got through that. And I sent it to him and I was like, see, like if I make it to you, why do I keep saying these things? It's in the past, so it doesn't matter. But so that when I made it to him, I was like, see, we're okay. So I'm sure I left out tons of things, but now you've gotten the general idea. More than that, you've gotten a pretty specific idea to the best of my ability, and a long soft-spoken one. I think this was the best in terms of the audio yet, so I'm feeling really excited about that. It's gonna be a tough editing process, so bear with me. Well, by this point, if you're seeing it, you already bore with me, whether you knew it or not. It's here, it's out. But yeah, so that's a lucky thing. So yeah, I hope I can get the edit done soon. Not keep you waiting for too long. So yeah, and then I need to film the 4th part of Falling in Love, and then I need to take a break from longer videos for a while because my phone doesn't feel like it's doing too great either. I think just the volume of processing I ask it to do with so much video editing. My computer's not doing so well. Well, obviously my computer's dying. They said, they were like, make sure it's backed up because one of these days it's just not going to turn on. So I use both my computer and my phone because I airdrop videos onto my phone so that the glitches kind of sort themselves out, and it saves me a ton of time and energy. But I think it is really hard on my phone and my computer, all this, dragging, dropping, deleting. I know it can be hard on your computer just from people who download and delete a lot of games. So I'm gonna need to take a break from longer videos for a while, so I really want to set you all up with some nice longer ones. I hope you liked this one if you're a fan of soft speaking. Thanks for letting me vent. Thanks for listening. Thank you for watching. And I hope you get lots and lots of good REM sleep. And as always, I hope all your dreams are sweet. Bye. That cat. Oops, here it comes. I had to tutor for how many hours? I had to tutor for like 2.5 hours in the vicinity of Oceanside. Oh, sorry. Speaking of hybrids, or I guess just electric vehicles,